all three on the left are all different Arab language television networks. Al Jazeera, Abu Dhabi TV is one. It's early in the morning across the Arab world on a Sunday morning, and no doubt people with TVs seeing this live.
Breslin up! Breslin! Roger, good to go.
To move up. Yeah, sorry.
The thing is, we can't see clearly what they're shooting at.
Right, that's just
but they're looking through some very high-powered optics. So they must see either movement over there or the indication of some kind of a prepared position.
They've certainly pounded it over the last 3-4 minutes.
And at some point, somebody's going to have to walk up to it and clear it. And they'll do that very carefully.
They seem to be doing everything very carefully.
He's still going for it. Which one? Lead tank. Where's the bunker?
I just ask you what's happening?
Roger, right now we just got a confirmation that we've got some pop shots. I guess somebody's trying to return fire with the tanks onto the tanks over. I believe the first tank's about to take a shot right now. There we go. Apparently there's somebody back there apparently that wants to keep going.
There go the heavy rounds.
One of the tanks obviously just fired heavily into that area.
Yeah.
You heard one of the troops say somebody has been exchanging fire with
Right.
them. That's
We've-
what that interview was.
We've seen a little bit where we've seen some answering fire on the second tank there. We saw the dust coming up beside it. And then we heard one of the Marines say that they believe there's an enemy tank in that area.
For good or for ill, this is where journalism and technology is in the year 2003.
This is called clearing an objective. It's one of the toughest parts of any military operation. It's delicate, it's dangerous, it's unpredictable, and this is not armored vehicles sweeping across a desert.
And we said some hours ago we worried that people would see this all. Yeah, it's just one more reality TV show. It's certainly reality. But if this were being produced for television, it would have ended long ago in a big bang. This is just the
I don't know whether you heard that.
difficult,
but,
dirty work.
Word has just gone
that
down
has
the
to be
line
done.
here to keep your heads down. Shots are coming out of the building still.
A little bit past 2 in the morning here in the east. Those of you just joining us, the broadcast you're looking at, the pictures you're looking at, are being literally broadcast live around the world right now. England, Arab countries. It's a Marine unit, an American Marine unit, inside the important port city of Qasr. And they are trying to clear an objective, to use the general's term. Pictures provided by a British pool team.
Aaron, one of the difficulties here, of course, is that when the Marines began this engagement, they really had no clear idea what the size of the enemy force was. People don't announce their forces. So you could be engaging a sniper, a squad, a platoon, or something. You tell the size of the force by the amount of fire coming out, the type of weapons that you're being shot at with, and it takes a while to develop that situation.
Lost the picture here. Let's see if we get it back. There we go.
And probably for the men in the tanks, they've never gone through this before either.
And I would just make the point here, as
Let
we
me give you my take.
remind you that this is not a TV show going on out there, that anything might happen and something very ugly could happen.
Started this whole firefight was fire coming from
And that is
two
the
Iraqi
nature of
positions
what we are able
in
to
that
do,
building.
for
Now,
good
what
or for
happened
ill.
Before that is that they obviously found another position in a berm, a huge sand bunker, where they thought they were receiving fire from, and one of the tanks took that out first, poured a lot of heavy machine gun fire into that position, and then some kind of cannon round, which you saw as the big cloud of smoke. Then they have moved down and are now pouring fire into the building. As you can see, there were at least 2 very large rounds went in, with a lot of machine gun fire following up. That is still going on now, and there are still fires going into that building. We had a call just a few minutes ago saying, keep your heads down along the line. There is still fire coming out of that building. Difficult to believe, I know, with the kind of battering it's taken, but obviously the US Marines are not satisfied that that building is safe, so they are still pounding it, and I suspect they will take it down brick by brick if necessary.
Voice of David Bowden, who's the British pool reporter. With his team.
Well, if this is a counterattack, then, Simon, I think it's a counterattack that we can strike off the board, because I don't think it's go on much longer. I think the people, if they are still alive in there, will either have to come out with their flag waving, otherwise they will be killed. There's no two ways about that. The US Marines here are determined that they will use as much force as is necessary, and then a little bit more, to make sure that their people are safe when they go into these situations. So until they are entirely convinced that this is over, that there are no more hostiles, as they call them, in that building, capable of doing them any harm, they will not let up. As I said before, if they need to demolish that thing brick by brick to make sure, that is what they will do. There won't be much left of that building when they've finished.
And Aaron, this, I think, illustrates the enormous complexity of ground combat in these small actions. The Marines really don't know what's up there. There's no terrain board, there's no map, there's no satellite imagery for them.
All of the advantages of
right. As I
a
say,
modern army.
There was an escalation,
Not
a
there.
very rapid
They're not there
escalation.
at the lowest level.
Right.
That we always put the technology in first to help the generals. And it's working its way downward, and it's not down here yet. What they'd like to have is an unmanned aerial vehicle
Sure.
with a TV camera. They can fly up there and spot those guys.
Mortar rounds
They don't have
started going into that area. and then there were 2 Javelin missile strikes. The first one went long of the building that we were just looking at that is now smoking. The second one was a direct hit, went straight into the top of the building, and we thought that that was it. Then the tanks arrived, they parked up just a ways down the road, waited for a while, and then slowly moved in. And as the last half an hour or so, I suppose, has played out, we've seen those tanks move into position. They've taken 2 positions out, one in a bunker, a berm similar to the one that I'm sitting in now, where they thought that there was Iraqi fire coming out of. Now they're concentrating their fire on the building that we were watching just a short time ago. But as Mike is showing you the pictures now, we have one of the US Marines with big binoculars, getting eyeballs on the situation, trying to find out what is going on there. But until that building is completely clear, till everyone up here is happy that no one is in danger, then this situation will go on. Yeah, it's closer to 2 now, Simon. This still kicked off 10, 15 minutes past 8 o'clock local
Still
time.
engaging in there.
We're now 2 hours into it, and it's still going on. I think it points up quite obviously that very small numbers of resistance can put up a whole barrage of problems for a very highly trained, highly equipped unit. The whole mission here has had to come to a halt while they deal with what is probably no more than a handful, maybe a dozen or so Iraqis who have been firing on their position. So whilst it might not be a huge problem in the great scheme of things, these are not vast numbers of people, they have brought this situation to a halt for 2 hours at least. It looks like it's going to go on for a little while longer, and until this area is completely safe, and nothing is to say that this is not the beginning of maybe a series of attacks on this position. This could go on for the rest of the day, perhaps even longer than that, and all the time the next mission, the next task for the 15 new here is having to be put on ice.
I will tell you that General Clark, it would be the general's considered opinion that this is not going to go on for hours and days.
But this is the task of the 15th MU. This is precisely what they should be doing, which is clearing this area. And it's unfortunate that normally you find out you have to clear an area when you get shot at.
That's how you learn.
That's the way you learn.
Interest to try and drag this out, it achieves nothing. These people are trying to deal with this in the most efficient, most pragmatic way possible. It's taking this long because it needs to take this long.
Exactly.
And I suspect that until they are absolutely sure, they will make sure that they have the upper hand, they have plenty of firepower to suppress any firepower that may come out of that building or anywhere else along this area of operation at the moment. The fact that we have received incoming fire from 2 positions does not mean that there are not Iraqis in other positions simply keeping their heads down, waiting till all this is over, simply to start it all up again. And until we do know that, then these men will stay here on their bellies in the dirt, staring down their rifle sights.
And there's one other thing that we probably ought to say about this. If this were World War II, you'd expect there'd be somebody back there pushing these troops to get up there and get this over with. But this is not worth taking that risk for. This is a matter of a slow, methodical reduction of this enemy position.
There you go, you've got that shot now.
Is that a change in doctrine, or the fact that you already know the ultimate outcome of this war if it takes another hour, day, week?
It's just common sense.
Right, take your time. Well, but why wasn't it common sense in World War II?
For one thing, there were tempo problems, maneuver space problems, but maybe it would have been common sense in World War II.
Okay.
As we look at battle today, when you have very, very well-trained soldiers and Marines like this, they behave differently than we did in earlier engagements. And there's different technology. We're sitting here with a huge technology advantage over this Iraqi opponent. We've got better communications, more weapons, fire superiority, we've got tanks. If he has a tank in there, it hasn't showed itself, and his RPGs won't hurt these tanks. So we should conclude this action in a way that's most advantageous to us.
On the Marines' timetable and no one else's.
That's exactly right.
An RPG for people who are trying to figure that out.
Rocket-propelled grenade, the Soviets introduced them to the world back in the 1950s and 60s. We fought against them in Vietnam. They will penetrate lightly armored vehicles. They will not penetrate an M1A1 tank. Not unless they hit it in a certain way back in the engine compartment. Now we want every one of these Marines, every one of the tankers in those tanks to come out of this engagement safe. We're not going to trade our men's blood to save 15 minutes in clearing this position.
And they're peppering it. Still, this is a different area. This is the third area, I think, in the time we've seen this, that they've worked. They worked a berm, they worked that building, that house or building, and now they're, it's a little hard for me to tell. It's just like a wall, doesn't it?
Looks like a wall, but you can't see
Through it.
You can't see the depth of it.
Right.
You don't know what's behind it. You can't see the movement back there that they can see with their optics.
And again, the general a little bit ago estimated that perhaps we're looking down 10 football fields or more from where these guys are to where those tanks are firing upon. So we're looking at a long lens down there. And sometimes this gets a little distorted in the way that the camera works, but
Now the tanks have thermal sights, so they can actually see people in that kind of terrain perhaps easier than we could, even with binoculars, because the body heat will probably make them stand out this time of morning.
My understanding is not much greater than yours, I have to confess, Simon. At the moment, I'm trying to attract the attention of the staff sergeant we spoke to a short time ago to try and get an update. When he wanders back through my field of vision, I will try and grab him and get him to give us a couple of words. But it's fairly obvious from what we're seeing that they're not as yet satisfied that that area is completely free from any danger to them. They are still pouring rounds into there. What I can see just to the right, if Mike Donnelly just pans the camera around, Mike, right down the road there, the road where the tanks are on, you'll see a convoy of vehicles headed by a white four-wheel drive moving down. Now, I don't know whether they are military vehicles. I suspect they are. It looks certainly like the ones following with the lights on are Humvees, probably
Go ahead,
American
General,
military
if you know.
vehicles.
Well, they've obviously are in communication because they've turned away from the firing event. So they're under control, positive control by someone to get out of the beaten zone of the firefight.
It may be more communications equipment. We simply don't know. As I say, when I can try and attract the attention of the staff sergeant, I will do so and try and give you an update. In the meantime, I will try and tell you as much as I can see of what is going on out with the pictures that you are seeing now. Mike is showing you the great numbers of people who are laid down here, the U.S. Marines. Bear with me one second. I have a U.S. Marine here.
Yes.
Can I just ask you, what's your understanding of what's happening right now?
Right now, we're suppressing the danger area right now with those tanks, as you can well see. We're trying to get a fire mission over there with mortar fires. That's all I know as far as right now.
And what
We
about
don't know anything. We don't know anything about any enemy yet.
what about these vehicles that we can see arriving as we speak? Do you know who they are and what they're doing?
Well, they're friendly forces. Now we're moving the convoy back over here. I don't know anything else about that.
Thank you very much indeed. So there you have it, as up to date as you can possibly be from the forces here on the ground. They don't know what the situation is with the enemy in that house at the moment. They're continuing to fire on it and will continue to do that until they are satisfied that it is safe for them to go into there. Meanwhile, a convoy that presumably was heading elsewhere, is now being brought back here to the safety of the port area, which is fairly heavily fortified. This berm is a fairly permanent structure. To give you an idea, I guess it's maybe 20, 30, perhaps even 40 feet high, and there are concrete inserts into it. You may remember that when we first started talking, I was standing in it. I'm now sitting on top of it.
This
to talk
is
to
the
you.
thing about
So it's a fairly
this kind of
robust
action.
structure,
You just
all the way
can't know
along it.
what's up
At its
there.
front,
Yeah.
leading
And
edge,
you
we
don't
have,
want to
US
expend
Marines,
people's lives
with
to find
machine
out.
guns
You're going to do
and
as much as you
with,
can from a
M16
distance.
and various
You're
other,
going to get the mortars in, the
weaponry
artillery in.
trained
You're going
on
to try to
that
make
building,
them reveal their
and,
positions. You're going to
waiting
try to understand the
to see
boundaries,
what happens, to see
the
if
size
it
of the
comes
unit, and
out.
then take it
A
apart
short while ago,
in
the call went out
from the
here
greatest
just to
range
emphasize
possible.
how dangerous it
Because
still
the
is.
farther away you are, the safer you are.
That's exactly right. And we've got the superiority here in the weapons. There's no great advantage to us to close in within range of some of their rifles and machine guns.
Here that has not happened, but that doesn't mean it may not.
You know, and obviously this is a plan of action that this unit's putting together based on their understanding of the situation. If there was if Patton's Third Army was behind,
Yeah.
and they were racing to get through here, and they were saying this, or they were being held up by this one position, then there'd be maybe a different read on the situation. But that's not the case here.
See, go ahead, David, take it full again for a second, if you would. See one of the young Americans with a video camera. One of those digital
Yeah.
camcorders. And see that he's got those plastic handcuffs, I think, are what's on his jacket there. Those little things you see at demonstrations sometimes. Should they encounter prisoners, that's how they'll
Right.
secure them. These guys have been lying down like that for a couple hours while this piece of business gets taken care of. Live around the world.
So when people ask what's ground combat like, and how come the unit stopped there,
Yeah.
and why don't we get moving faster, this is the cutting edge of this unit. Now other units have bypassed it, and the advance toward Baghdad's not being held up by this tactical problem. But they have to solve this problem.
You know, just to underscore that, so many times in Afghanistan, and I'm sure we would have done it here, we would talk about why is it moving so slowly? Why is it moving so slowly? Something must be wrong. Something must be wrong. Those of us who are witnessing this and as best we are able comprehending this will have a much greater appreciation for the complexities that determine how long things take. We're reporters, not soldiers. But we're smarter for having seen this.
Here they are engaging it again with machine gun fire.
This is the third area that they have fired upon.
They're either taking fire from somewhere in there, or they're seeing movement, or they're simply trying to probe and do reconnaissance by fire by engaging in there. We can't tell from here.
We can't tell what exactly that building is.
And that's the way it is in war. You can't tell. We don't know if that's a warehouse, a garage, a shell of a building.
Again, these pictures are being provided by a British pool team. I looked at the monitors behind me. It's literally being taken around the world. The pictures on the left in the small box, that's Walt Rogers, our correspondent Walt Rogers, who's traveling with the cavalry unit we spent a fair amount of time with. They have also been engaged in some nastiness. Walt, if you can hear me, tell me just fairly briefly, though, I need it to be fairly brief, what it is that's happening with your unit.
If I can just interrupt you there, Jeremy, you may well have noticed from our
Lost it. We'll
pictures
see if we get
the
it back.
tanks
There it
appear
is
to be
again.
firing
Charlie,
on a third target now. You can
Yes,
probably-
Aaron, if you can hear me, 7th Cavalry was moving forward through a city which we can't identify at this point. They took some fire from Iraqi units, actually a small group of soldiers. The 7th Cavalry had to call in artillery. I hope you can see in the distance the huge plumes of smoke going up behind us. They've turned us around. If we can get those pictures up, we have seen at least 3 Iraqis taken prisoner. Another Iraqi was wounded at the time, and he was being treated at a field hospital. If you can stand by just a second. Charlie, can you point that camera up in the air? Aaron, can you see the big plume of
Yes.
smoke there behind us?
Yes, Walt, and
All right, it's obviously an oil fire.
And Walt, just so that you get a better sense of what's going on across the field here, while we are watching your pictures live, we are also watching pictures live of a Marine unit at Qasr engaged in a firefight of some length of time that is being broadcast live around the world as well. On one side of the screen we see you and your pictures, and on the other side of the screen we see the U.S. Marines engaged in this fight, this clearing operation in Qasr.
Aaron, what you're looking at is a fire which was detonated by U.S. artillery fire from the 3rd Squadron, 7th Cavalry. They were moving north. They encountered that fire, a small arms fire, and they called in either mortars or artillery. We're not sure which. Suddenly there was a huge explosion in the distance, and you can see the big plumes of smoke going up. Again, the 7th Cavalry column is parked along the road. We have seen at least 3 Iraqis taken prisoner, being questioned. They, by the way, were wearing like all black uniforms, or everything was black. We're not sure what unit that denotes. And there was at least 1 Iraqi soldier that was wounded. We're getting out of the vehicle again, perhaps clear up these pictures and give you just a slightly better look.
Thank you. We've lost for a moment, or perhaps longer, we'll find out, the pictures from the British pool feed, the pictures, we've just flipped them around, okay? I know this is a little bit disorienting if you're trying to follow it, and we apologize for that, but we're trying to keep. Now we have them both back. That's the plume of smoke Walter was talking about a bit ago. So that's the cavalry unit now is on your right. And on the left in the small box is the American Marine unit engaged in this Qasr operation. And we hope you indulge us in the spottiness here and there of these pictures and appreciate not the little glitches, but the extraordinary achievement of being able to do this at all. Walt's group
Aaron, it's Walt, if you can hear me.
Yes. Go ahead, Walt.
We're being asked to move back to the rear of the column again. We move forward to get you the pictures again. We are on the outskirts of a relatively small-sized Iraqi city, south-central Iraq. The 7th Cavalry was moving forward, as you noticed, and then it took some fire, small arms fire. The mortars were called up, or artillery of some dimension, and there was a huge explosion immediately afterwards, and then this big billowing black cloud of smoke. Again, the cavalry's taking its position in the fields outside this city, but the very small units here are standing tight now, standing firm, and not moving forward. We were moving forward for a while, but again, the Iraqis very sporadically are putting up resistance, and there have been at least 3 Iraqi prisoners taken in this engagement. I see them on the ground over there. They were sitting dressed in black, their arms folded, and they were being guarded by units of the 7th Cavalry. then behind them we saw the U.S. Army military detachments, or the medics, taking care of one of the Iraqi soldiers who was wounded in this engagement. Again, the American strategy tactics, Aaron, seems to be to stand off with the longer range weapons the United States has and just fire out punching from a distance the Iraqis. Again, we're going to turn around, it appears, and we're going to give you in just a second, if you can be patient, those pictures again.
Okay, you just hang on, Walter. Again, to orient viewers, on the left, that's Walter Rogers of CNN and his cavalry unit that he's been traveling with now for several days. On the right, that's a group of American Marines who have been engaged in a clearing operation somewhere outside of Qasr that has been going on for a couple of hours. The pictures on the right provided by a British pool to say that we are pushing the very edges of technology here is not an understatement. We worry a little bit we're overloading you with a little bit too much. At the same time, it is not an overstatement to say that in history of journalism, there has never, ever, ever been a moment like this. And you can see over on the left now the prisoners that Walt Rogers was talking about that had been taken. Those of you who have been with us for several days now are very familiar with this unit of Americans.
We're going to pan left for you. We'll show you the vehicle they were taken in.
For a second. Okay, the cavalry unit now on your right. You're familiar with this unit. You've traveled with them across the dusty desert when they were racing across it. You were with them in the rain and the mud last night when they encountered, off in the distance at least, some trouble. And you are with them now again today when they have taken some prisoners. Look at the difference in the armies.
Have Aaron come back to us. I can narrate more clearly now.
Go ahead, Walt.
Aaron, what you're looking at is the 3 Iraqi prisoners. They're dressed in black, squatting on the ground. The 7th Cavalry has given them water. If Charlie can pan left a little, you can see the pink pickup truck that they were using as their armored vehicle. Now you can imagine what that does if it comes up against a tank, but they have mounted a light machine gun on there, a 7.62 millimeter, and that pink pickup truck is the kind of vehicle that the 7th Cavalry encountered here. If we can look further to the left, we can get more plumes of smoke still coming up. That smoke is the result of a fire generated by U.S. artillery, either mortars or the larger 155s. There was an Iraqi resistance as the 7th Cavalry was moving up this road. Aaron?
Okay, Walter, be patient with me now because I'm managing two sides of the screen here. So just I'll get back to you in a second. Now on the left side of the screen, or David, if you want to flip them over, I'll follow you here. What has happened here now, according to the British Pool Reporter, is a Republican Guard officer or soldier, I'm not sure which, has surrendered. Commander has surrendered. And he has told the Americans that there are 100 Republican Guardsmen in there somewhere or out there somewhere. General Clark, has the equation changed?
Well, not if we can get the commander to surrender the unit.
Yeah.
But it shows the difficulty when you're doing a clearing operation. You would have had you've got here a company or a platoon that's stumbling into a larger force. And so they did the right thing. They developed the situation. They called for armor. They've applied superior firepower to that force. They're going to break it and take it apart piece by piece.
So they surrender or not, the end game, it ends the same.
It does.
Okay, so that's where the American Marines, who are now in the large box on the right, are. a commander, a Republican Guard commander has, we are told, has surrendered, and whether he is now preparing to surrender all of his people, we will watch and see. Cavalry unit on the right, you were able, on the left rather, you were able to see some of the prisoners they had taken, and both of these pictures are being broadcast live from thousands of miles away in the middle of a war. This is literally the kind of thing that we in this business have talked about for 20 years, 30 years probably, that someday we would have the capability, the technical capability to cover war live. And on this day, at 2:35 in the morning Eastern Time on a Sunday, that which we used to talk about in the ways students do has come to be. Let's just, if we can for a minute, just to try and check both situations, listen to the British pool reporter David Bowden and see what he's reporting to audiences around the world.
Across the range here at what for the moment is a fairly quiet scene, smoke still billowing out of the building that started this all off, but the tanks are quiet. The people here appear to be quiet. There's obviously a situation report being compiled from down there to see exactly what the state of the situation is, whether or not there's a need for more tank fire, whether or not in fact the immediate danger is over, and when and if we find out something more, I shall tell you, Simon.
Fair enough, that works for me. That's David Bowden, who's the British pool reporter. Now, Walt Rogers, if you can hear me, I would just simply request, because we're trying to keep track of two situations at the same time, update me on your situation, but do so please as briefly as you can.
Aaron, the 3rd Squadron, 7th Cavalry was moving north along this road. It approached a small Iraqi city in south-central Iraq. It was supposed to move forward, and suddenly it began taking fire. The column stopped. You can see the armored column in position now. The fire ahead comes from U.S. artillery, which knocked out some sort of Iraqi installation ahead. Iraqi prisoners were taken. They were driving a pink pickup truck with a light machine gun on top and a New York PD, New York Police Department bumper sticker on the windscreen of the Iraqi pickup truck, which is what these tanks encountered here. Again, the tanks have stopped. What you're watching is a plume of smoke, the result of fire taken. Now you can see a Kiowa helicopter flying up there doing the reconnaissance. Aaron?
Thank you, Walter. That's sort of irony on top of everything, isn't it? I mean, there's this breathtaking and historic in its own way moment, and just to make it a perfect moment in the context of why this war is being fought, you come across a pickup truck with an NYPD sticker on it. I mean, you can't write movies like this.
If you did, no one would consider it realistic.
Right, you couldn't sell it.
But Aaron, as we're sitting here, I can't help but think, you know, for the guys in the military, in a command center far away, they've never seen anything like this either.
Now, they have CNN. They're watching this, I imagine, aren't they?
I imagine they are. At least in the higher level command centers.
And are they watching it in the way that we are watching it? Or are they watching it in an operational way?
They're getting a lot of other input, but somewhere on one of their screens, this is up there. And they're also getting the radio calls. They see all the units moving. They hear them. They've got symbols on their maps, but those symbols aren't showing these tanks parked by the side of the road or those Marines sprawled out on top. And they're not dynamic. So together with all of the information coming up the chain of command, these two little nuggets could be extremely valuable.
You know, it must be, in its own way, you know, these men and women at CENTCOM sit in front of these laptops for hours and hours on end, and now they can look up at a TV screen and see what it is that they've been controlling and monitoring, and it must be, I guess we'd make everyone crazy if we tried to put a camera in there and threw that on the screen as well, just to round off the moment, but it must be something of a moment for them as well. We can see the tank moving there on the right side of the screen.
It's moving into the area to either accept a surrender or bring fire from a different angle and a closer range. But think about it from the Iraqi position. They're also watching CNN.
That's correct.
Or some Arabic station, and they are watching these tanks and these Marines reduce the Republican Guard holdout in Basra. And they're thinking...
Qusayr.
And they're thinking, how are we going to succeed against this? How could we defeat this kind of technology and these kind of soldiers and Marines? And maybe it'll help bring the war to an earlier end.
There's, again, a British pool reporter, and let's just see if he's reporting now. There's another television cameraman there, also we saw. And David, if just for a minute maybe we could take that full, just in anticipation that something might be about to happen. General Clark points out, you can see, if you look almost dead center in your screen, an Iraqi flag waving, just right between those electric wires or phone poles there. Now they're almost to the right edge of the screen, just went off the screen. And now those tanks that had been just lined up are starting to move in. Just pleased to state the obvious here. This is live, and this is war, and that is a dangerous combination, and we can't assure anyone, obviously, that something truly hideous is not about to happen and will not be seen. And be warned.
Well, that's right, but I have to say that no one is really bothered about the spin and the politics and the diplomacy, if you like, of this right now. They have a situation to deal with here. They are trying to deal with it. Yes, you're right. This will be viewed.
Helicopters launch massive Hellfire anti-tank.
Move forces forward, and the fact that the Iraqi army is up and willing to take people on. The facts of the matter, as we have seen unfold over the last couple of hours, is that a relatively small number, we think, of Iraqi troops, we have to assume they're troops, they could be lone gunmen, I suspect they aren't, some kind of organized squads, have put down fire onto a US Marine position. They have returned it 10, 50, 100-fold, and have now sent in tanks to try and obliterate the problem. But as the Colonel was saying a short time ago, this is all eating away at the clock. The idea originally, I go back to the very beginnings of the war, the plan, as written down, said that this project, if you like, for the 15th MEU should be over, certainly within a day. We are now well into day 3, and whilst they will say that they are secure here, this area is obviously not safe. The staff sergeant has just come and squatted next to me. Maybe I can just grab hold of him before he gets a drink of water. Staff sergeant, what do we understand is happening right now?
Right now, we've got an observation team that's located on that tower right back there, and they're calling in. They've zoomed the tanks into that direction right now. They're going to do a sweep through and get a visual of eyes on of what's still left in there prior to the infantry going in. Just want to make sure that we have an overwhelming firepower before we move in.
Do you know anything about these reports that, in fact, you've already captured a Republican Guards officer and he's told you there's 120 men out there?
Negative. We can't confirm anything on this level over. We're just, right now, we're just doing what we have to do to assess the situation and as the battlefield unfolds, just respond and put down as much firepower as we can.
This thing has escalated substantially from a couple of squads and what looked like nuisance value early on. This is a full-scale battle now, isn't it?
It's definitely reshaped itself until we actually get soldiers, the Army and their tanks, because I believe right now, I second that. Once we get the Marine tanks onto the ground, we get some Marine infantry in there, we'll be able to get a better evaluation of what's going on.
And as the problem with the third building, that corrugated iron building, the vanilla
Walt
one
Rogers
over there,
and his cavalry unit now, our correspondent Walt Rogers,
So they've got a better
is under the command of a 30-year-old captain, Captain Clay Lyle,
Hello, CNN. You're right up front.
Fort Stewart, Georgia.
Hello.
Walt,
There's the CO. Go over to the CO, right over there.
Walt, we can hear you now. You're on the air.
Hello, hello. We've lost our IFB, folks.
Okay, IFB is is the way they hear us. I guess, General, we have our acronyms too. So Walt has lost out in the desert his ability to hear us, and so he does not know that necessarily know that he is on the air now, which creates a danger all of its own. But they're moving out.
Now the advantage this cavalry unit has over the Marines, of course, is the cavalry unit has the helicopters organic.
Organic meaning?
They are part of the cavalry squadron. They're there, they're on the radio frequency with them, they're working as teammates when they need to check out something. And here, in this situation with the Marines, we had to send the tanks in, close terrain.
Right.
Where they can't maneuver easily, where their visibility is restricted.
Okay, hang on. Bring up the British side here, the right side of the screen.
What's happening?
Like at the moment, obviously 15 Mu still engaged in just clearing this part of the port. Once they're complete, the next units down are ready to move in and take over the port from them, so let them get on to their next mission. At the moment, the main thing is we're just clearing out this position down here now.
The next units, they are British Royal Marine Commandos. This is 4-2 Commando, is it?
They're one of the units, yeah. One of the units looking to move in and take over this place.
Now, there's been much speculation that this should have been over and done with now, and these guys should have been out of here already. Did you expect this kind of resistance?
Well, quite frankly, the minute you cross the start line, that's when the script runs out. You can't guess what the enemy are going to do. Some people up here put some very good resistance. The Marines are dealing with it like they usually do. It always takes longer than you think.
But you're confident that this position is pretty much stabilizing itself now, and it won't be that long before we can declare this area safe and the mission can sort of get back into gear again?
Yeah, these guys are doing well. They're going carefully, getting it done properly. I'm very happy it's going to be done quite soon, and then we can get on to the next part of the mission.
And what's the view back in the command post, back at Camp Viking, about how this whole thing, the insertion of 40 Commando, 4-2 Commando coming in, the 15 Mu, what's the overall view?
Well, I was at Naples Ark Royal commanding the team out there, and absolutely delighted. All our targets, Night 1, all intact as designed. Still some sporadic resistance over the L4, but that's been cleared up today. So we're pretty happy so far,
And obviously you're not going to tell me anything that's going to jeopardize the security of your forces, but what can you tell us about the plan from here on in?
The main thing now is consolidation in this area. As you know, the port here in Umm is designed to be the main humanitarian relief port. So the big game now is to get the area secure, check out the port facilities. Let's get all that cleared. Then get some naval units up here. Let's get some aid delivered.
And there was a problem, I know, or certainly a fear, that the waterway may have been mined. Has that gone away?
Not gone away, but at the moment the UK MCM group, our UK minesweepers, have just started down the far end of the Khor Abdullah. They're starting the clearances now with USMC helicopters and a few other bits of kit, and they're slowly starting working their way up now. North Bank's been secured by 42 Commando, so they're safe from both sides of the bank now. So that clearance has now started.
At the risk of making you a hostage to fortune and circumstances here, how long then before realistically the first aid ship unarmoured could get in here?
Well, you're quite right. We will be a hostage to fortune. I haven't got a clue.
Right.
But the work's ongoing. We're getting there. And, we'll be there as fast as we can.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, there you have the Deputy Brigade Commander, Colonel Cox, telling you exactly.
All right, just to throw one more piece of information at you, ladies and gentlemen. We told you earlier there was a missing RAF, British Royal Air Force plane, jet. We are now being told that that plane may have been engaged by a U.S. Patriot missile battery, and that would be indeed a tragedy, friendly fire incident, and we expect to hear more from the British public information people on that shortly. And they will give us more detail, but there's no. We can confirm that's coming from the RAF, and they may give us more detail on that. And again, we would note that the British have had a tough few days, particularly given the size of the force that is there. Less than about 15% of the force that's in the region.
Well, we'll have had a tough day if this is true.
Go ahead, General.
One of the prime requirements with air defense is not to shoot down your own aircraft, and a lot of effort has gone into that, a lot of technology, a lot of training, a lot of procedural controls, and this is the first time since the last Gulf War that we've had to deal with incoming missiles. We've got a very, very effective air defense system now, anti-tactical missile defense system, and I hope this proves to not be correct.
I hope this proves not to be correct also, but there does seem to be a pretty strong feeling that it is. It's certainly the view now, at least, of the RAF, that is what apparently happened, and we'll wait. Now, we'll throw one more voice into the mix. Jason Bellini is of our staff is embedded with a Marine unit. He is about 1.5 miles away from what you are watching now on your screen. Jason, tell us what you can about what is going on.
Okay, Aaron. Well, to be honest with you, you can't see anything from where we are. All we can do is hear, and we hear the sound of machine guns. It's fairly sporadic, and we've also heard some loud booms, presumably coming from those tanks that are in the fight. We're still trying to gather what information we can.
Okay.
This is a very large port. The people that we're embedded with, they encountered fire in the same area just the other day, and that slowed them down as they were making the march from one side of the port to the other. They fired back. They thought that they had suppressed it. They thought that the problem was already taken care of. So the people here saying it's a bit of a surprise that these guys have reemerged. Aaron?
Jason, thank you, and we'll let you get back to gathering information, which will give us a better feel for all of this. This is an extraordinary set of circumstances that we find ourselves in yet again tonight. This day for us began with, and it now seems a long time ago as you watch this, with a tragic incident at Camp Pennsylvania in the northern part of Iraq, forgive me, of Kuwait. We've been at it a bit. In that incident, it is now alleged that an American soldier opened fire on other American soldiers. One American died in it. 11 others were hurt, varying degrees of seriousness in the injuries. There was he shot, it is alleged, 2 of the people in this tent and then threw a couple or 3 grenades. He was found about 30 minutes or so later, and he is in custody and being questioned. He is I'm hesitating to report something because I'm not clear I can at this point, to be honest. So let me hold on to the thought. So that happened a long time ago, and that made it a bad day, certainly for the American side. That's not the kind of thing that Central Command or anyone else wants to hear about. This is with the 101st back in Kuwait at Camp Pennsylvania. And that was also occurred in front of embedded reporters. Jim Lacey of Time Magazine, in fact, who we talked to for a good long time, helped carry some of the wounded to get medical attention. And again, a young American soldier described as having recently converted to Islam is in custody. And that story is still developing. It seems like a while ago. There was also Patriot missiles were also fired at another base in northern Kuwait, which also took an incoming Iraqi missile. An embedded reporter, Carl Penhall, was reporting on that. Everyone's okay, the Patriots worked there. And now we watch this scene of American Marines trying to control this spot on the earth in the desert in Qasr, this important port city, important for a number of reasons, not the least of which is it is the place where millions and millions of dollars of humanitarian aid, of food, medicine will come into Iraq as soon as it is safe. This is part of the bargain that the coalition made in engaging in this, is that they would care for, feed the Iraqi people along the way. And to do that, they have to be able to get ships into Qasr. And to get the ships in, they have to control it. And what you're watching in front of you is one operation to do so. There was a sense earlier that that had been done already, but clearly that is not the case.
U.S. official
and
confirms that it looks like, and that is their phraseology, it looks like a Patriot missile may have shot down an RAF plane.
The American command now says it looks like, to use that phrase, their phrase, so it's not quite certain, but it looks like it was an American Patriot missile battery that hit a RAF plane that is also missing. So it's been a complex and difficult day. There's been a tendency to see this march to Baghdad as some sort of cakewalk. General Clark points out we need to find out when this Patriot or this friendly fire incident, let's describe it that way for now, occurred. And we'll get some more information when it, not only when, of course, but where it occurred. And we're efforting to get some more information on that from Central Command and our correspondent there as well. There's a lot going on, folks, and it's going on live. I was about to say there's a bit of tendency to look at this march to Baghdad as some sort of cakewalk, and we always say that's not the case, and this is difficult, and there are tricks along the way, and you need to be careful in how you view it.
As we've already seen this morning, very few people can cause a lot of trouble. 20 to 25 people with hostile intent could cause even more trouble. So sorry, Simon, I interrupted you there, but I thought it was important you should know that. That's right. Whilst this on the ground here is very much a U.S. operation, 15 MEU, the Marine Expeditionary Unit of the U.S. Marines, is for this particular conflict under the control of 3 Commando Brigade, Brigadier Jim Dutton, the man in charge of that, and Colonel Steve Cox, who we just spoke to a short time ago, his number 2, the Deputy Brigade Commander. He is up here. He is looking, of course, to get in the next wave as soon as possible so that the 15 MEU can move on to their next tasking. But as he said to you, 42 Commando Royal Marines have already cleared one bank of the waterway up here of mines. We've got Navy minesweepers moving up the waterway very close to us here now. They will be checking for mines. If you cast your mind back a couple of hours, I was telling you that the naval base just to the north of here was taken by U.S. Marines earlier this morning. They came across very little resistance as they were doing that. They did find a munitions cache, perhaps not unexpected given that it was a naval base. They also found barges with sea mines in them. The obvious inference is that if the mines were still in the barges and still, if you like, awaiting to be deployed, then they are not floating up and down the waterway, potentially causing damage to any either naval vessels or perhaps more importantly in the long term, humanitarian aid vessels who will be itching to get at the regeneration of this place here. I don't know if you can hear that. There's more gunfire now from the back of the building. I'm going to shut up and let you watch it and listen to it.
We still see those personnel moving west of your position about
yeah. Tall, great skin.
There are bodies all in there. I saw at least 15 bodies popping up and down.
Right? Then there's a gap, isn't there, between that
Or to make a bit of a shift change here ourselves here as you watch this play out, Anderson Cooper and Carol Costello will continue to watch all that is unfolding on what is truly a remarkable and, for journalists at least, an historic moment that we've been watching, a moment that has, I suspect for many of you who have watched it with us, changed your perception. Those of you who have never been, many of you probably have been in these things before, those of you who have never been in this sort of situation watching fighting a war, it changed the perception of how these things go on, and we'll probably never again say, why is it taking so long? We'll see again later in this day.
Perhaps we should give viewers just joining us an update of what's happening in Qasr, because for the past few days we've heard that the military had taken control. But as you're seeing by these live pictures, they certainly haven't. A firefight is now going on in Qasr. You can't see the picture of the building right now, but Marines are lying on their stomachs. Tanks are in the area, and apparently some Iraqi troops are holed up in this building. There was some fire, and we understand it may be some part of Saddam Hussein's Republican Guard inside. A Republican Guard commander has turned himself in. Perhaps he'll get the rest of the troops holed up in that building to turn themselves in as well. At least we're hoping so. Let's watch these live pictures as Anderson Cooper joins me now on the anchor desk. Of course, at the very same time this is going on in southern Iraq with the 7th Cavalry, where our Walter Rogers is, an oil well has been set on fire, and they recently picked up some Iraqis in a pink pickup truck. A machine gun was mounted on that pickup truck, and those Iraqis have now been taken into custody. Don't know if Walter Rogers is on the move again with the 7th Cavalry. We're going to take you live there in just a moment. But right now we're still in Qasr, that port city that's so very strategically important because, of course, the United States And Britain wants to get humanitarian aid into Iraq as soon as possible. And as I said, for the past few days, Anderson, we thought Qasr was in the lockdown, that we had taken control, that the United States had taken control of Qasr. And by these pictures, we see they have not.
Well, it's not so much a question of not being in control of the territory. It's more, as the military spokesmen have been pointing out, the pockets of resistance, as they call it. Christian Amanpour and Jason Bellini, who have been on the scene in Qasr, saying that while large parts of the city are secure and in coalition hands, there are these pockets of resistance, whether they are individuals.
Oh, we can see something just happened by the picture shaking.
Simon, let me just tell you what
Let's
I think
listen.
is happening now. Those 20 or so figures that had been spotted on the horizon are now moving towards the convoy we were talking about before, and they've just told the convoy that they should dismount and take up defensive positions. Mike Donnelly, my cameraman, has just asked one of the US Marines if they can point out exactly where all this is happening. They're just having a quick look down our lens now just to make sure we're pointing in the right direction. So you are seeing pretty much a Marine's eye view of this situation as I speak to you. Difficult to see with the naked eye exactly what's going on, but a great flurry of activity. Obviously concern that these people may be moving on to this position. Of course, the alternative is that these people are moving towards the convoy because they want to surrender to them. But until we know one way or the other, the Marines here are very keyed up, need to make sure that they are safe. And as I say, I'm not looking down the lens now. We have a US Marine who is actually looking down our camera lens and showing you the pictures of what is concerning them. So you are getting it straight from the horse's mouth, if you like. They are pointing the camera at what is exercising them. I don't know what you can see, Simon, but to me, very little has changed. But they're obviously concerned about these people who are moving along.
The picture you're seeing on the other side of your screen is from southern Iraq, from Walter Rogers. We understand shortly he'll have an interview with the tank commander to tell you exactly what happened in that incident with the 7th Cavalry. But again, let's listen into what's happening in southeastern. Walter, are you there now?
Yes, I'm here, Carol. What you're looking at now is the 3rd Squadron 7th Cavalry's commander, Lieutenant Terry Farrell. He's meeting with his officers, that is, the men who control or who command the tank and Bradley platoons. They are assessing the combat situation ahead of us at this point. Again, we're on the outskirts of the city in south-central Iraq. The cavalry tried to move forward a short while ago. At some point, they encountered some resistance. There was artillery fire called in, and you've been watching all morning the big plumes of black smoke. I think you can see it there now over the top of that main battle tank. That is what has slowed down the cavalry. Again, there has been resistance. We've seen at least 3 Iraqi prisoners taken. At least 1 Iraqi soldier was wounded, and he has been treated by the U.S. Army medics. By way of a footnote, short vignette, the Iraqis who were taken prisoner were driving a pink Japanese pickup truck with a light machine gun mounted on the back. On the windscreen was a bumper sticker that said New York PD. This is what the Iraqi Army was driving around in. We'll get back to you when Colonel Farrell is free. Carol?
Walter, tell us more about this pink pickup truck. That must have been a bizarre sight for the troops.
It was indeed. It was a pink pickup truck, your normal Japanese issue, but the Iraqi soldiers had mounted a 7.62 millimeter light machine gun atop that. Palestinians have been doing that for years when they were in Beirut. And on the right corner of the right windscreen, that is the windshield, there was a bumper sticker pasted up there.
Walter, I'm sorry. We're going to have to interrupt. You're seeing Walter Rogers' pictures on the right-hand side of the screen. On the left-hand side of the screen, we're going to go back to those pictures. Qasr, we are being told the tanks are taking up defensive positions. This has been a situation which has been going on for over an hour at this point, perhaps as many as 2 hours or so before we joined it. You see a tank there in the middle of your screen taking up what we believe to be defensive positions. These images are being taken Around where the camera is, which is taking these images, if you're just joining us, there are a number of U.S. Marines under British command deployed. They are literally laying on the ground, weapons at the ready, looking through telescopes, looking through all their binoculars, trying to get a sense of how big the enemy position is, how many enemy forces there are.
I wish the camera would pan over so folks could see the building in there for those viewers just joining us. And the interesting thing about this is that Republican Guard commander who surrendered at Qasr, because we had thought previously that Saddam Hussein's Republican Guard wouldn't be in this part of Iraq defending it.
And according to a British reporter, Republican Guard commander who surrendered at Qasr has said that there are about more than 100 or so Republican Guard hold up. Whether or not that is at this location, we are not exactly clear at this point, but again, you're seeing tanks taking up defensive positions. And what you're really seeing overall is a very methodical, very carefully orchestrated attempt by the Marines in this instance to secure this area. And this is what is happening in Qasr, has been happening over the last 24, 48 hours or so. These small-scale operations, mopping up, as they often say, trying to root out and deal with, whether it's by apprehending or, frankly, killing the pockets of resistance, which have been using small arms fire. Again, on the left-hand side of the screen, you are seeing Walter Rogers images, the troops assembling, talking, 7th Cavalry in south central, somewhere around south central Iraq. The right-hand side, you are seeing Qasr.
And General Clark said something very interesting. You know, when people ask, why isn't the U.S. military moving faster? Why can't it approach Baghdad even faster? And these kinds of firefights are the reason why. They take so long to put under control because you just don't know what is happening. I mean, literally, there could be, 100 Iraqi soldiers in this building that we can't see right now, but it's a large concrete building. They don't know what's inside.
General Clark also making a very important point, and a point he stressed to me right as he was leaving, is that if the Iraqis believe that by doing these sorts of sniping incidences they can stop the larger advance of U.S. forces, they are simply mistaken. This is a small unit, a small detachment of Marines which is dealing with this small encounter. The larger unit, the larger forces have basically just bypassed this area and continue to move onward. So if obviously the strategy, anytime you have a small unit operating, doing some sniping kind of operations, their objective is to slow down, is to harass, is to delay. General Clark making the point that if that is what they think they are doing, they are mistaken.
Of course, we don't really know if they have a strategy because at this point we're still not clear if Saddam Hussein is in command of his troops. Perhaps that Republican Guard was just happened to be in the building and saw the military troops approaching. We just don't know as of yet.
Okay. There has been a lot also happening elsewhere throughout the region at this point. We're going to go to Tom and Tier, who will joining us on the phone. We're going to stay with these pictures in Qasr, and you may see the Walt Rogers pictures pop up again on the left-hand side of your screen. Or we may actually, I think we have a picture of Tom and Tier. We're going to see him come up very soon on the left-hand side of our screen. Tom, what's the latest you can tell us about this apparent incident of friendly fire?
Well, what we can tell you is that the British have confirmed that they believe a Patriot missile took out one of their warplanes in the skies over Kuwait. Several hours ago, the British confirmed reports that one of their warplanes was indeed missing, and now within the last few minutes, the British spokesman has told me and confirmed to CNN that they believe a Patriot anti-missile missile was responsible for downing one of their aircrafts in the skies over Kuwait. So if indeed this proves to be true, this was probably one of the most horrific friendly fire incidents that we've seen, not in this campaign, but in the last Gulf War as well. Reports early on from the British, they had a plane missing, and now they are confirming that they believe this British military aircraft was taken out by an American Patriot missile battery located inside Kuwait. Again, a Patriot missile apparently downing a British warplane somewhere over Kuwait. Anderson?
Tom, we want to follow more about this with you, but we're going to have to wrap it up with you because we have with Walt Rogers, a tank commander who is available. Tom, we're going to hopefully come back to you because we want to talk more about this. So let's go to Walter Rogers now in South Central Iraq. Walter?
Hello, Anderson. What your pictures are showing you now is Lieutenant Colonel Terry Farrell, Commander 3rd Squadron, 7th Cavalry. He has been briefing his men for the past 20 minutes or so on the order of battle as it has unfolded. We're expecting him any moment. We thought he was finished just then. He still is getting questions from his tank commanders. So I'm going to go back to you, Anderson, and I'll come to you quickly again when Colonel Farrell walks our way.
All right, well, let's just stay with you, Walter, for now. We were talking to Tom and Tier about this incident of friendly fire, but if we could, we'll just try to stay with you as long as you're available. What is the situation exactly now?
The 7th Cavalry was moving up the road, approached the outskirts of a city, an Iraqi city in south-central Iraq. They began to take some small arms fire. We're not sure how substantial the fire was because the Bradley armored fighting vehicles were far in advance of us, as well as a few tanks. The commander decided to stop the move, the column, put it on the side of the road. They called in artillery. The artillery pounded the Iraqi positions, and what you can see off to the right is the smoke which has been rising from the targets of the U.S. artillery. That's been burning like that. It was burning much more furiously 45 minutes or so ago. The Iraqis were pretty well pounded down, but again, 7th Cav has not gotten its orders to go forward yet. At least 3 Iraqi prisoners were taken. They were put in squatting, sitting positions beside the road. They were being interrogated by interpreters, army interpreters. They all seemed quite jovial. It was a rather friendly conversation. The Iraqi POWs were given bottles of water. They were wearing black uniforms. That doesn't tell us anything about their unit, but perhaps someone out there recognizes the unit. And what happened was another Iraqi soldier, again in that group, was wounded. The U.S. Army medics took him to one of their trucks, one of their armored vehicles. The Iraqi soldier was being treated. I cannot tell you his condition. He was too far away, 50 meters away, and we couldn't go off after him. But one vignette, the Iraqis who were taken prisoner were driving a pink pickup truck with a light machine gun mounted on the back of that when they were put out of business. They must not have put up much resistance, otherwise they would have been taken out very, very quickly. Right. You can see Colonel Farrell, the 7th Cavs officer, sipping his coffee over there. Anderson?
All right, Walter, we're going to come back to you when you have the colonel, and let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Qasr, Carol, with General Clark.
General Clark has joined us, and thank you so much, because I know it's been a long night for you, but extraordinary developments are happening overnight. Tonight, on Sunday, into Monday. No, it's still Sunday. It's Saturday into Sunday. I get mixed up on my days. What are we seeing in Qasr right now?
Well, they're basically trying to clear the area. In other words, when you take a position like this, it's very complicated. It's a very big area. Nobody is, unless the unit that you're defeated has total control, it doesn't even know where all its own people are. So somebody could surrender, but you still have holdouts. And in this case, you may have different units. There were some Republican Guard guys in Qasr who were put in there by Saddam Hussein's top commanders to stiffen the resistance. Apparently, they did not surrender. So they were shooting at the road when people were moving by. These Marines were on a routine clearing mission, trying to really give up the area and move on north when they came under fire this morning.
And what do you make of the commander turning himself in of the Republican Guard?
Well, I think he recognizes he's in a hopeless situation, unless it's a trap.
Yeah, we're going to go back to Walt Rogers now because we understand he does have the commander of that tank unit. Walter, are you there?
But, yeah, it's working great. I think you'll see this.
Yes, Carol, I'm standing here with Lieutenant Colonel Terry Farrell. He's the overall commander of the 3rd Squadron, 7th Cavalry. Colonel Farrell, can you give us an idea of what the action has been this morning? How has the combat unfolded, please?
For approximately the last 24 hours in and around this objective area, we've been dealing with substantial light infantry force armed with RPGs, mortars, and air defense weapon systems. They've been very protective of the locks, the roadways that run around the city, as we've gone through and fought our way through to secure those to facilitate our movement into zone.
Obviously, they're still out there. I think those are 155s we're hearing in the rear, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They're still there. It's still an effective force out there that we're fighting through. There's been a lot of success on the part of the squadron throughout the night to allow freedom to maneuver on these locks. And now we're preparing for another operation that will force us to push through this area. And we're just prepping that. That's what you hear now.
What was the unit size that you faced over there? Do you think it was battalion strength? And were you surprised by the resistance the Iraqis put up?
No, I was not surprised by the resistance at all. I mean, they're fighting, and we expect them to fight. It was about a battalion sizes, approximately 300 dismounts or more, with RPGs and mortar systems. We've encountered one or two light armor systems, but predominantly ADA system that's had an impact on the air coverage that I usually work.
How significant has their resistance been in slowing your forward progress?
It has not slowed my forward progress. Actually, I'm ahead of schedule of where I thought I would be today. By moving later this afternoon, I will be 24 hours ahead of what I thought I would be doing, working well through this, because it is a light force on a very heavy armored force that we've had no impact from their fight. We just had to search them out and destroy that force.
Is the size or the concern about American casualties in any way affecting your battle plan as it unfolds? That is to say, the tanks are not moving as fast forward as they might?
Well, no, negative. We're moving at the pace we need to move. The key here is a light force. I'm an armored force. I have to find them, then I have to go to them. They've done a very good job, or as working in and around this environment, of using ambush positions or built-in positions that allow them to maintain cover and concealment. The tanks and Bradleys are actually moving a lot closer than I would normally see, just so that we can find them.
That black column of smoke up there, what was the target when the artillery popped that one?
We destroyed 2 air defense systems at that location earlier in the wee hours of this morning. And when we went in to check BDA, we actually discovered there was an ammunition dump, a very sizable ammunition dump at that location. So we destroyed that as well.
And will we be moving forward again in the near future?
We will be moving forward here in the very near future.
Lieutenant Colonel Terry Farrell, commander of 3rd Squadron, 7th U.S. Cavalry. Thanks very much for talking with us.
Thank you,
back to the Hummer.
Walter, if you could hold on to the Colonel, General Clark is here and wanted to ask a question.
That's okay.
He's gone.
Well, maybe Walter Rogers can answer your question, General.
Well, Walter, let me ask you this. I think that...
Hello, General Clark.
Hello. It's good to talk to you. You've been doing a great job out there, and we've been very appreciative of what you're doing with the 3-7
Thank you, sir. Nice to be...
Let me ask you this.
Thank you, sir. It's nice talking to you.
We're watching. We heard Colonel Farrell now brief what he found up there. About 300 infantrymen dug in using the terrain. What kind of... How are they doing it? How is it that they're concealing themselves so well in that terrain? Can you tell us anything about it? And did they have effective command and control, or were they just abandoned there?
My assumption was they had some effective command and control, because remember, the 7th Cavalry has known that battalion-sized unit has been out there for nearly 24 hours now. At first, the 7th Cav was not sure of the size of the Iraqi forces out there, but it later became determined. I knew and reported as of about 12 or so hours ago that it was approaching battalion size. At one point, we heard that the artillery and the Kiowa helicopters, which you see flying in the distance, took out about 180 of the Iraqi soldiers, killed them. But that's fairly stiff resistance out there. There have been reports, we can't confirm, but in other aspects of this theater, that the Iraqis had moved Republican Guard forces in to back up and put some spine into these Iraqi units which are out in front of the 7th Cavalry. General?
Do we know what unit, Iraqi unit this was, Walter?
At this point, we don't know, but as you heard the general say, and I won't go further than what he did about our location, but there are canals ahead of us, and what the Iraqi unit has done has tried to use these natural obstacles as a wall to try to stop the advance of the 7th Cavalry.
Walter.
Again, they've only taken a prudent pause. Yes, Carol?
Walter, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt. The Iraqi Information Minister, Saeed, right? Saeed Sahaf is speaking now, and he's talking about Qasr, where there is a firefight ongoing. Let's listen to what he has to say about this.
This is the 4th day of this military aggression that is المنفردة في العالم ومعها being perpetrated by the superpower accompanied by Britain. This is the fourth day, however, and they've been lying to the whole world, but the media has been able to refute their claims. They claimed that Qasr was under their control, and they changed their story, and they said, no, we only control the harbor, and today clearly the pictures show that they're not in control of the harbor. I would like to tell you that the fighters, the resistance, our heroes in Qasr are teaching them a lesson. Those American and British mercenary, they will face their ultimate death, and fighting is underway and very intense. And in Qasr, which is not far from the desecrated Arab land where the British and American invaders are in Kuwait. There is only a fence between Qasr and the other side. The Iraqi fighters for the first day slapping those gangsters across the face, and when they flee they will take their backsides. Therefore the battle is continuing, and those cowards, mercenaries, can stare death in the face, and they can see how the Iraqis are resisting and defending their land in a small part of their country, in a small corner of their country.
In English, I will brief you on few points, and at the same time I represent to you our military spokesman, General Hazem Al-Rawi. We will add his efforts and all the information he has to our daily briefing to you.
We're going to jump away from that right now. We just got word from the British reporter on the scene in Qasr that the armor is being pulled back, and that may well, let's ask General Clark, what might that mean, that they're pulling back now? Could it mean an airstrike?
Could mean an airstrike, could mean heavy artillery in there. We're not quite sure what the armor saw when it went in there. To be honest with you, it made me a little uneasy because I never like to see tanks get into close quarters like that, where they can't traverse the gun tube and they don't have the ability to maneuver. And the tanks, part of the tank's protection, especially the M1A1 tank's protection, is its speed. When it's in the open, it moves.
Well then, I mean, that I assume is what is so difficult in a situation like this. If the tanks are sort of limited by the space, you also don't want to send in troops. I mean, you don't want to send in ground forces because that risks human lives.
The ground forces don't have the protection.
Right.
So in this case, the commander did the right thing. He put the tanks in there enough to be able to see what was going on. He recognizes, for whatever reason, that he's not going to be able to reduce this position with machine gun fire. And it looks like he's going to call something else.
So when airstrikes begin, of course, their target will be that building where these 100 or so Iraqi soldiers are holed up.
Well, that's a question. It might be the building, but it might be, there might be some dug-in position behind that we can't see. And this is what makes ground warfare so difficult, and it's really why this is such an amazing episode we're watching. The men from this position they really have no idea what's around those trees. No more than what we can see. They don't know any more really than we do about it.
I wish we could drop the banner for just a second so folks could see that those are Marines armed, lying on their stomachs. pointing their guns towards those trees back in the distance.
And they haven't moved for about 3 hours from that position.
The information minister, which is always an interesting title, I think, in his case, basically says that this is a sign of the resistance that they are putting up and that they are able to halt U.S. military operations. Is that true?
Well, he's partially right. It is a sign of resistance. But what has to be acknowledged is that this is a very, very small element of the U.S. force. And the rest of the U.S. force is still moving and moving north toward Baghdad. He's not delaying anything here by the resistance. This is going to be over with. The people that fought are either going to have surrendered or died very shortly here. And this is the routine task that you do after you seize an objective. You have to secure it. You have to clear it of the enemy.
And this is an example of what we're going to be seeing for the duration of this war, don't you think?
I think this is a foretaste of what we're going to see in the built-up areas on the outskirts of Baghdad. In other words, the terrain is complex. This is not open desert. You can't look from a distance and assume that you know what's out there. Behind every rise in the ground, there could be a bunker system. Within a grove of trees, you could have an enemy anti-tank gun or tank. And when you get resistance, you have to focus on that resistance and either eliminate it or effectively seal it off.
But for viewers just joining us, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that building, we've been talking a lot about it since we've come on the air, and if you're just joining us, inside that building, General Clark, from your perspective, because you've been here longer than we have, what's going on inside that building?
Well, apparently the Marines came here in the very early morning of Sunday morning Iraqi time. They got fire, they thought, from that building. They hit the dirt, they returned fire. It took a while to get in contact with the tank platoon. They brought the tank platoon up from our right flank as we see it. The tanks came into the area. The tanks received fire, a little bit of machine gun fire. They returned fire. They discovered that there were Iraqi soldiers in a trench line and bunker system off to the right. The camera's sweeping away from it, but off to the right. And they returned fire on that. And then they moved in front of the house. They got a little bit of return fire out of the house. They blew part of the roof of the house off. Part of it, the left side of the house has a little 3-story tower on it. They shot the tower with cannon. And then they moved into what looks like the courtyard or the environs right around the house. All 4 tanks went in there. They met a Republican Guards commander who reported that he was going to surrender. They then backed out. And now we understand, we don't know whether it was a surrender of one person, surrender of a unit. Apparently it wasn't a surrender of a unit. And so this is the sort of fog of war and the friction of war down at the bottom.
So now those tanks have been pulled back, and we don't know exactly what's happening next, but we can guess.
Presumably, they're going to need more firepower to deal with that force in there. Presumably did not surrender. We did not see a bunch of guys sit down or come marching out.
And if an airstrike is called in, what is the process for that? How long does it take? How does it work?
Well, the unit will go through its chain of command 1 or 2 levels up. There'll be a liaison officer there who is on an Air Force or a Marine Air Net who will actually talk the aircraft in. Then they'll either use the grid coordinates of this building with the reference of what it is around the building they're attacking, or perhaps they'll have a laser designator and actually put a laser spot where they want the bomb to be dropped. It'll be done with a visual identification of the target.
One moment, we're going to go back to Walter Rogers, who is somewhere in south central Iraq with the 7th Cavalry. You have an update for us, Walter. What is it?
Yes, Carol, I was talking with an officer in the 7th Cavalry here about the kind of resistance they're meeting on the road ahead of us. What you can see is that big plume of smoke rising. That was an Iraqi ammunition dump. The problem with the advancement at this point is that when the Kiowa helicopters, the reconnaissance helicopters, go forward, they're taking an enormous amount of small arms fire in the direction of that smoke cloud. We do not know how many Iraqi soldiers are still up there, but one one soldier described the situation that when the Kiowa helicopter flew over, it was akin to, in his words, Black Hawk Down. Now, none of the U.S. Kiowa helicopters have been shot down, but anyone who saw that movie can attest to how much fire these helicopters are coming under when they move forward. General Clark was earlier asking two questions, one of which we have the answer to. That is the nature of the cover which the Iraqis have taken. It's a small grove of trees with mixed buildings. It's very difficult to see the Iraqis in that position, but their position is small, low trees and mud buildings. Now, the unit, we've tried to find out...
Okay, Walter, we're going to break away now and go back to Qasr.
We're told an airstrike may be coming. That may be why we're seeing some movement of this cameraman in front of the lens. Again, this is a situation we've been watching now for several hours. What should we be looking for, General Clark?
Well, the first thing you're going to see is the bomb hit, unless the cameraman rotates up and you can see an aircraft. But this aircraft could drop from 20,000 feet. You might not even see the aircraft that drops that bomb. It depends on the type of aircraft.
They're apparently warning everyone in the scene. That's why you saw the cameraman get up to get behind a wall, assuming that's for protection from any fallout.
Yeah, well, this is a 2,000. If it's a 2,000-pound bomb, it's got quite a large danger zone around it.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. I mean, will a protective wall really protect them?
It will, but you'll still feel, probably from this distance, and I can't exactly say the distance, maybe 1,000 meters, maybe 1,200 meters, maybe 1,600 meters out to that house. It's really hard to say through the camera, but
you're switching back to your military measurements in meters.
We always use meters, and you should feel a shock when it comes in if it drops on that house with a 2,000-pound bomb.
You know, it's kind of hypnotic watching these pictures. I mean, as we've discussed, this is unprecedented. Just seeing this kind of thing, especially for the American public. What does the camera not capture? I mean, for the Marine who's lying on the ground watching this through a scope, who has been laying there for 2+ hours in the heat and in the fog of war, what are we missing?
Well, you're getting a good wide-angle view here, but you don't have the optics to be able to really see what, let's say, a tank sight would see looking at that. And the key in a battle like this is you need a lot of eyes on the target. And you have to look very, very closely at the target. You have to study it. And you may not at first see what's there. And it takes a lot of different people looking from a lot of different angles. The other way to do it, of course, is you can just start walking toward the target. And at some point, people get hit if they're still there. And we don't do that anymore. So we try to really distribute binoculars down. We try to use optics. We could have brought something like it, if we'd had here in this case the OH-58 Delta that the 37 Cav has, we could have brought an OH-58 Delta in. And it's got great optics. It could hover, it could move from angle to angle and really tell us what's out there.
So whatever information is gathered in those ways goes back to the Marines who were lying there on their stomachs on the ground somehow.
Well, we hope it does. But we're not sure exactly what the information is that's been exchanged between the tank platoon and the Marines. That's on the ground. That's always an issue because everybody's very busy. These radio nets are full of discussion all the time, and it's push to talk, and so it's not like a telephone. One person talks, everybody else listens, and people are fighting to get onto these nets normally and explain what they need, what they see, where they are, and so forth. This is very stressful.
And a lack of clear communication. We can hear planes now.
Unless the pilot is taking ground fire, and I can't tell whether that's crackling in the camera or ground fire coming up. Unless he's taking ground fire, there's nothing to keep him from going around and around that target till he really sees where he should put the ordnance in. So he may make a couple or three passes to make sure he's really understanding the situation.
And he probably knows there's nothing to fire at him from the ground because the Marines on the ground have communicated that to him, obviously.
Well, the Marines don't know that.
Gotcha.
In other words, there could be surface-to-air missile in here, handheld. Could be a 14.5 millimeter anti-aircraft gun in there. that hasn't been exposed. You're always operating here with relatively limited knowledge in ground combat.
Yeah, not that because I am not a military expert, but just flying around up there above the target would be frightening, at least.
You have to fight and take risks to get information in ground combat. The information is not given, it's pulled out.
What kind of plane would likely be involved in I mean, if it is an air run, what kind of plane are we likely to see?
Well, if it's a British airplane, it could be an AV-8B, it could be a Marine AV-8B, which is a Harrier jet, it could be an F-18, it could be anything really that's available. The air battle captains will scramble the aircraft, divert here. They've got this is a troops in contact kind of a air support mission, so they should take priority.
Are there flights, I mean, just going around in the airspace at all times that can be called upon to go into to target one particular scene?
At this point in the battle, there probably are. It's called push close air support, push CAS we call it. And you launch aircraft without giving the pilot a specific target. He goes up into an orbit, he tanks as necessary to maintain the orbit, and then when he's called in, he's given the target, he's talked into the target.
So it's not a question of a jet being scrambled from an aircraft carrier or base somewhere?
Probably not at this point.
For this kind of target, would there just be one?
Probably would be a flight of two, with one doing the dropping and one doing the spotting.
And on board each of those planes, one pilot? Two pilots?
Depends on the type of aircraft.
Gotcha.
And without knowing how many forces there are, I suppose they pick the ordnance depending on what they think is appropriate.
Well, I mean, first of all, we don't use napalm. That's gone. So you've got really a choice here between cluster bomb and big bomb. And we wouldn't want to use a cluster bomb if we thought the Marines needed to go through there. And if the troops are dug in on that objective, you wouldn't use a cluster bomb. So you're going for a big bomb here.
Yeah, our producer tells us the planes are getting closer. It's hard for us to determine that by just hearing the audio.
Well, guess is the planes are probably orbiting up there. They're talking to the people on the ground, and they're being passed information. And they're going to verify the information with their own eyes.
And certainly who's ever in those buildings or behind those trees can see the aircraft, hear the aircraft, and
And this is the sort of thing commanders, I mean, used to only see in military centers. I mean, back when you were active duty, I mean, you used to kind of observe these sorts of things in war colleges. And
you train this. This is training at 29 Palms or the National Training Center at Fort Irwin. You practice getting into a situation. You have a force out there. You call in the close air support, and they drop for you. But a higher level commander, until now, wouldn't see it unless he happened to be there. One of the keys in military leadership is to go to the critical point in the battle. So if this particular enemy was holding up the division's resistance, the division commander might be here watching it. But of course, that's not the case here. This is a routine sort of clearing the zone. We're going to reduce this enemy force. It's either going to surrender or be destroyed. We're going to do it without losing any of our own forces.
I can't imagine how tense things must be out there. I'm feeling tense, and I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia. But just waiting for something to happen and hearing the planes up there.
War is either boring or tense and dangerous. When it's boring, people are out there wishing something they could sort of make something happen. And then in the case when they're really tense, they wish they weren't there. This is okay here. The problem here is to keep the attention level. Troops are tired. These Marines have worked hard, and they've had interrupted sleep, and so they're in a position where they've got to be at utmost attentiveness, focused on this position continuously.
Is there any sense, I mean, we may not know simply, but how many forces are involved in this I mean, we've seen, you know, a dozen or so Marines probably in the immediate vicinity of the camera. Any sense of how large an operation this is?
Well, we don't know the size of the Marine force. It's at least a platoon. It may be a company.
So explain a platoon, how many?
Maybe, for the Marines, maybe 35 troops, 40 troops. And that's what I've seen, but this could be part of a larger force here. And the whole force could be focused on this for all we know.
Now, earlier we had seen a patrol coming down the road. It was to the right of where the camera is now. Then they seemed to break away and sort of move off. That, I guess, a sign that operations in this area haven't come to a complete halt, that things continue to move on.
Of course, they just bypassed where the fighting was, but it's a good sign for the Marines because it shows they have positive command and control of the activity that's in that area.
It also shows a level of communication,
exactly.
Which is obviously a good thing.
That's exactly right.
It's fascinating to watch. I mean, there's so much had been made in the last war about the sort of the antiseptic nature of the pictures we saw. It seemed so far away. It seemed this is a completely different thing, and it will be interesting to see in the coming days and weeks what sort of an impact that has, both on the military planning and the.
Well, this is why we argued so strongly to have embedded media. In 1991, the greatest tank battle in history was never covered by the press because the United States Army didn't permit anyone to come forward. So there were a number of us who felt that this was absolutely essential in promoting public understanding. This is not antiseptic war. This is not clean. This is high technology war, but it's very much hands-on, high risk. And
it's interesting that you say that because, you know, you hear a lot of criticism of the media for having embedded reporters and possibly putting the troops in danger by giving away too much information. But the military knows all of that, understands that, and has ways around it and wants them there.
Well, it's very important for the military, I believe, to have this kind of information coming out because the way it works is that the technology works from the top down. The first guy to get served is the commander, the general, and he only has to be in the right valley. He doesn't have to know precisely where. The general's not calling for artillery on this point. And what you have in the Marines and the Army is you have so many lower level units that to equip them all with the technology is difficult, expensive, it's hard to maintain, it's very bad environmental conditions, it's hot, it's dirty, it's dusty. The stuff gets thrown around in their track vehicles, and so we started, when we really started with technology 20 or 30 years ago, the guys down here never had it. So but this is where it has to be. These people really need the access to an unmanned aerial vehicle. If you had a small unmanned aerial vehicle and you could fly it over the battlefield and take a picture, you'd see what was there. You wouldn't have had to drive the tanks into the grove of trees and risk the tanks in there.
Going back to the Iraqi troops that are holed up inside that building or perhaps around it, we have heard that we don't know the condition of Saddam Hussein, and maybe his military is in disarray. What does this tell you about that aspect of this war? Is this an organized thing?
Well, first of all, you always have to respect your enemy. Human beings are human beings, and some are more courageous than others. And even in an army where it has deteriorating command and control and inferior equipment, you'll find brave people. And they will oppose you if they determine to do that, even knowing that ultimately there's not much chance for their success and that this won't make any difference to the outcome of the war.
So this may not be part of some grand military plan.
Oh, it is. It is on the part of Saddam Hussein. He would like to stall us here. He'd like to use the vastness of Iraq to soak up the American forces, force the American forces to expend manpower.
I hear yelling
use up their supplies. They hear it coming in.
we heard one loud boom, but I mean, I couldn't identify what that was. And then that
No, well, it
those
didn't
little
strike that
pinging
target.
sound. Yeah.
I think what's happened with the camera, and I'm just guessing here, since we saw one cameraman moving in front of the lens, is that he has probably laid the camera in just a stationary position while they were told to seek cover behind some sort of wall. So you may be wondering at home why, when that explosion occurred, the camera didn't move or pan over. It's probably an unmanned camera at this point. This is a pool camera, and these pictures are literally being seen around the world live on stations across not only the United States but across the world, Arab stations, European as well. This is a British reporter on the scene, and again, right now we believe his camera person, as well as the Marines who they are with, have pulled back and are sitting behind some sort of protective wall as an airstrike was called in. We heard one explosion. We don't know exactly in what location it was, how close it was. It sounded relatively close.
It sounded close, but presumably he left the target pointing at the camera pointing at the target.
Or the wrong target, perhaps.
The wrong target, yeah.
Or, they could have called in the air on several different targets, and we may be only seeing one of them.
You know, we've heard so much about this sort of sporadic contact in the last 2 days or so around Qasr, small groups, small pockets of resistance as it's been categorized. I mean, I'm sort of wondering, and perhaps you can answer it, what is in the mind of an Iraqi soldier willing to stay behind? I mean, if with all that has been put out, all the leaflets that have been dropped, all the sort of sense that the Iraqi regime's days are numbered. Let's watch.
That was clearly some kind of ordnance, and the aircraft made a pass. We're just not seeing the results. We don't know what the Iraqi soldier's thinking, but probably he doesn't see the big picture. He's probably been told, this is the mission, you're going to stand here, you're going to fight, and you're going to die for Iraq. It's important. And
probably feels he has no choice.
He probably feels he has no choice. He feels his family expects him to do it. His family has no choice.
Is it known the level of communication that they may have with Baghdad still? I mean, do we know that at all?
Someone knows that. And the implication or the statement from the Secretary of Defense has been it's deteriorating. But
of course,
that doesn't necessarily apply to this particular unit.
Yeah, we're seeing on our screen now that the Republican Guard commander has surrendered, and hopefully the U.S. military will be able to get some information out of him.
Hopefully he will talk and will explain this, and maybe he'll convince someone else to surrender. And that's the way you'd like to roll up the position. You'd like to do it by having the enemy surrender rather than by having to dig them out in each location. Because when you go into an area like this, you really have no idea what the strength of the enemy force is anyway, until they begin to surrender.
As we continue to watch this scene in Qasr, we're going to be joined by Christian Amanpour, who is live somewhere in southern Iraq near some oil wells, which I believe in the rear of her we can see seem to be alight. Christian, what is the latest where you are?
Anderson, just a word about the Qasr situation. We had been briefed all morning that the things there weren't completely secure, and as you can see now, they're taking care of it. We'd also been briefed yesterday that some of those holding out, as well as some of those who had surrendered, had been sent down from Baghdad. Those who surrendered had told the U.S. Marines that they didn't want to fight anymore, but clearly those who are still holding out are perhaps part of those same units. As for where we are, we're in the Rumaila oil fields, which are the big, strategically important, economically important oil fields for Iraq. And the objective here was to take these oil fields and all the gas and oil pumping stations here intact. And that is what they've done. Essentially, we've been told and we've been shown the gas oil separation pumps, which are the very important facilities which eventually pump the oil down to where it needs to be exported. But the thing is, what the important thing here, they tell us, is that they have secured those. They have found no attempts, they say yet, of any Iraqi booby trapping or sabotage. Of course, as you know, before this campaign started, people were being briefed very heavily that U.S. and U.K. intelligence had showed them that the Iraqis were planning to blow up their oil fields. Well, the British Royal Engineers who've gone in here, they started 8 hours, or rather 3 hours, after the actual ground offensive started. They say they have found absolutely nothing yet to show that there was any attempt to booby trap or sabotage, and certainly nothing that shows any orders were executed to do that. There have been several oil wells set on fire, but that, relatively speaking, is a minor situation. You may be able to see some smoke in the background. That's one of those oil wells, but the important gas oil separation pumps have not been sabotaged in this area. Anderson?
Christian, we are seeing not only your picture, but also very close-up pictures of oil wells that have been set on fire. Quite dramatic pictures from Kuwaiti TV. How are those fires going to be put out? Are the troops you're with capable of that, or are they going to have to call in experts?
Well, there's several methods. Again, just to put this in perspective, there's something like 500 oil wells in this area, and according to Tommy Franks yesterday, 9 had been set on fire, and according to the engineers here, even that number, they say, is being rolled back to 7. So 7 out of 500 is not a huge amount. So what they've done to try to put them out, in some instances, they've turned off the valves in the gas and oil separation pumps. In other instances, they have petered out themselves. But yes, they are waiting for private contractors who are already in Kuwait, waiting to come up here, not just to see about those oil wells, but also to get the oil pumping separation, oil and gas separation pumps working again, because they have not been working for a while. When the UK forces came here, they found no Iraqi engineers or anything at these places, and so essentially it's shut down for the moment. So they're trying to get that up and running as soon as possible. And just one more issue about this, it was U.S. Marines who came up and did any combat that needed to take place here to secure these fields, and shortly afterwards, a couple of hours afterwards, in a joint operation, the British engineers and explosive disposal experts came up here and did the turning off of the valves, the securing of these oil facilities. Anderson?
Christian, from a strategic standpoint, does it make any sense to have these oil wells lit on fire by Iraqi forces, or is it simply a harassment, simply a delaying tactic on their part?
Well, it was what we're being told here. The assessment was that if that has happened in terms of those very few wells, it was perhaps either an individual firing around into one of those wells and setting that on fire at the mouth of that well, or an attempt to try to obscure the vision of the invading forces. But that has been a futile attempt. We've also seen oil-filled trenches around some of these installations, and some of those we can see that the oil has been burnt off. Some of those weren't even set ablaze by the Iraqis. It was an attempt to obscure the vision. That's what we're being told by the military experts here, but it didn't have much effect on the troops who came in.
Christian, will those troops stay in that area to secure those oil fields, or do they move on?
No, they will stay, certainly for the moment. It's now under the British command, this oil field area, as the American forces have moved up and towards their main objective, which is Baghdad. But they will stay, and they will obviously be securing the area and waiting also for those private contractors to come in and get those gas oil separation plants up and running.
And when the Marines moved in, do you have any sense of the level of resistance that they encountered?
Yes, we were told by the British that there was a certain amount of resistance about a kilometer away from where we're standing now, which is apparently was the main pumping station. That's where there was some resistance. There were some casualties taken as well. That apparently has already been released, but there were a few casualties, some injuries, and perhaps one U.S. fatality there. These in the early hours of the land invasion. But again, that was fairly localized, and up until now, there's been nothing else to harass them, and they are taking control over this particular part of these important fields. And I may have already said it, but this southern field, the Rumaila oil field, produces somewhere between 50 and 60% of Iraq's oil output.
All right, Christian Amanpour, live in southeastern Iraq. Thanks very much, Christian. I appreciate it.
Yeah, before we go to Walter Rogers in south central Iraq, Qasr We believe that the aircraft now are retreating, but we don't know that for sure. We know that some bombs have been dropped, but we don't know what they've hit. We're going to keep you posted on the situation there. But right now, we want to go to Walter Rogers with the 7th Cavalry. He has new information for us. Walter.
Hello, Carol. I was told by senior officers in the 7th Cavalry just a few seconds ago that as a U.S. Army Humvee was traveling up the road, you can see behind me, one of the Humvee vehicles was ambushed. It took what we believe is a rocket-propelled grenade. Miraculously, according to the officers, none of the soldiers inside the Humvee was injured. This is, again, quoting senior officers in the 3rd Squadron, 7th Cavalry. We are not able to confirm that on our own capability, but this is coming from the top brass in the 7th Cav at this point. Again, a U.S. Army Humvee traveling up the road going northward. It was hit by an RPG, according to the officers in this unit. Miraculously, there was no one injured in that, at least to the best of anyone's knowledge at this point. But of course, that's going to make the soldiers here even more aggressive. They have been taking considerably surprising small arms fire throughout the morning. They've been returning artillery fire and so forth. But every time you can see one of those Kiowa helicopters go forward, we're told that they are taking very heavy small arms fire from the Iraqi unit on the ground just a mile or so up the road. Those Iraqis are firing shoulder-fired missiles, small arms fire. One officer told us it was like Black Hawk Down, except there are no Kiowa helicopters down, and so far we can report no U.S. casualties. Back to you, Carol.
Walter, that Humvee that was fired on by a rocket-propelled grenade, did it destroy the Humvee, and how many soldiers are in the Humvee normally?
Well, I can't tell you that until I see the vehicle in terms of its destruction. I can tell you that a Humvee is a soft-skin vehicle, and an RPG should be devastating in an attack against a Hummer like that. As I say, it's a fiberglass door. That's what we're riding in. There's no protective covering to speak of. Soldiers inside the vehicle, however, would have on their body armor, and that should protect them from anything but the worst possible hit. How many soldiers were in at the time? Again, we can't tell you that. I just don't know. But again, repeating what we've just learned, a U.S. Army Humvee with the 7th Cavalry up the road, which is behind me, north of here, was moving toward an Iraqi position. It took an RPG, according to senior officers in the 7th Cav. The vehicle obviously would have been badly damaged, but no U.S. soldiers were injured, according to the officers with whom I've spoken. Carol?
And Walter, the 7th Cavalry halfway to Baghdad right now. And is it safe to say that you're being met with ever more resistance?
Well, I think what you're going to see from here on out is the cavalry fighting its way northward, and I mean that quite literally. The Crazy Horse Troop of 7th Cav just moved out a short while ago. They're Bradley fighting vehicles. There's never been any illusion, even before the border was crossed from Kuwait, that there would be a fight and that the Iraqis would fight the closer you got to Baghdad. And I think what you're seeing, I'm not sure we're halfway there yet, but I think what you're seeing is the Iraqis in small units so far, although we've had battalion-sized resistance, they are indeed putting up a fight. Carol?
Can you tell us more about that Iraqi vehicle, that pink pickup truck with the NYPD bumper sticker on it that was captured earlier this morning?
That was a real hoot, Carol. It was about a mile down the road behind me. What happened was, as the 7th Cav was moving forward, it again encountered resistance, but that truck did not look too badly damaged. What it was your standard Japanese pickup truck with except it was painted pink, but it had a 7.62 millimeter light machine gun mounted on the flatbed area. And as the cavalry was moving forward, it encountered that. It's not clear how much fire was poured down on the truck. The truck still looked in pretty good shape. The 3 or 4 individuals inside surrendered. At least 3 surrendered. We think the other was wounded. As a matter of fact, we know one of the Iraqi soldiers was wounded. But the best thing about that pink pickup truck with a machine gun was right on the windscreen, right side, you had a great big blue and white NYPD bumper sticker, except the Iraqi army or the Iraqi soldiers put that on their windshield. Carol?
You know, there's all sorts of speculation about why they might have done that. This just must have been a bizarre sight for the soldiers there.
I guess it is, but remember, Carol, sometimes these guys fight in, the Arabs in this part of the world will fight in Nike tennis shoes, and there are products, it's a real dichotomy. In the Arab world, there are American products, American symbols like New York PD, which are still hailed as something valuable and something they like to associate with. American commercial products, the very same thing. This while they're shouting Allah Akbar and screaming death to the Americans. It's one of those bizarre contradictions which you get in every war, but this one is more pointed because we're here and we saw it. Carol?
Walter Rogers reporting live from South Central Iraq this morning. Anderson?
All right, well, we are going to go to Bill Hemmer, who is in Kuwait City at this hour. It's 4:05 here on the east coast of the United States. It is just after noon in Baghdad, 12:05 in Baghdad or so, as well as in Kuwait City, where we find Bill Hemmer. Bill, what's the latest where you are?
Anderson, hello. Welcome to another day. It is Sunday here, as you mentioned, just a few moments past the hour of noon here in Kuwait City. A member of the 101st Airborne Division killed earlier today by one of his own. I want to show you an image here of a suspect now being detained and held for questioning after what's being described to us as a small arms and grenade attack was launched inside of one command post of the 101st Airborne Division. Now, this group had been camped out about 2,000 strong, we're told, in northern Kuwait when this attack was launched, again by a member of the 101st Airborne Division. The identity of the suspect not revealed, but what we do know, one soldier is dead as a result. 2 others wounded, treated at the scene. They are said to be recovering at this time. But in addition to those 2, 10 others have been medevaced to a local Army hospital. They're now being treated. Some of those wounds, we are told, are said to be quite serious. We talked with a member of the 101st Airborne earlier today. This is how he described what he saw at the scene today. All right, apparently we don't have that, but I can tell you a lot of these guys in the middle of the night were asleep at the time, Anderson. They were awoke by the sounds of the grenade explosions and also the small arms fire. There was a Time magazine reporter inside with the 101st at the time. He describes a series of facts that we have not independently verified here at CNN. But he says it took about 45 minutes to locate the suspect. At the time he was found hiding inside of a bunker. Again, all this happening about 2 o'clock in the morning. But as a result, one person now being held for questioning as a result. It's possible, and again, this is not verified either, it's possible there may be another member of the 101st involved.
Bill,
that's something we're
Bill,
trying
I'm
to
sorry,
get
we must
on our own
interrupt.
at this time.
We've got to go back to Qasr. We apologize because now we're seeing the aftermath of those airstrikes that happened just a short time ago.
That's right. Those strikes occurred about 5-10 minutes ago. We were watching it live, didn't actually see the explosions. They happened off camera. We heard at least 2 impacts separated by a couple of minutes. What we're seeing is obviously smoke rising out of an area that we have been watching a lot over the last several hours. In case you are just joining us at this hour, for the last 2.5 hours or so, at least a platoon-sized group of Marines, perhaps larger, has been watching. They apparently took some sort of incoming fire they believed from the direction of these buildings. They did not go in on foot. Tanks came in, shot up at one area off to the side, to the right of the screen that you're seeing now, a sort of a burn area. We saw machine gun fire, I believe 1 round of RPG fire into that area. Then the airstrikes were called in. Right before the airstrikes were called in, the camera crew, the Marines, even the tanks pulled back so that they would not be affected by any munitions that were dropped. And the live picture, smoke rising from the impact zone for at least 2 of those munitions.
And we can't tell exactly what it hit, but we believe there was a building back there or a line of trees. And we believe about 100 Iraqi forces, 100 soldiers, Saddam Hussein's army. Republican Guard, we believe, because earlier a Republican Guard commander surrendered, but the rest of his troops did not. They stayed behind, would not come out of a building or a group of trees. So that's when the airstrikes were called in. And as Anderson said, the tanks were pulled back in preparation for that. A short while ago, we heard the roar of the planes overhead. and then we heard the explosions, at least 2 of them.
Yeah, we did hear 2. It's simply impossible to know how many or how few troops were in this area. We have the statement, the British reporter on the scene was told the Republican Guard commander who surrendered had said some 100 or 120 or so troops were there. That is simply no way to know at this point, nor do the troops on the ground, the Marines on the ground who have been watching this, who have been taking care of this situation. They simply don't know.
And you might imagine they have to approach this area once again to see if it's secure. At least somebody does. So
right.
Maybe the tanks will roll in again. Unfortunately, General Clark has left us, but
well, as General
you might
Clark
imagine they would do that.
As General Clark mentioned, the difficulty with sending a tank into an area like this is that the speed of the tank is one of the greatest assets it has, and when you are suddenly in a confined area, you're not able to utilize the speed. Also, if you start getting into city streets, especially if they are narrow city streets, you have a very difficult problem with mobility. Also, the turret, simply moving that turret around creates, you simply can't do it in a very confined areas. So.
Right, and you can't exactly look inside the building to see what's in there from a tank, so that would be very difficult. Qasr has been, I don't know, a crawl on the U.S. military side for the past couple of days. They do have it under control, but they've run into these firefights along the way. If you remember 24 hours ago when Anderson and I were on the air, there were pockets of resistance then. They were going from building to building in the port city, looking for snipers, looking for people who were armed.
Right. We have Jason Bellini has been in this area for the last at least 24 hours that I know of, probably even longer. We'll probably talk with him a little bit later on in this broadcast. We'll try to get him up sometime the next hour. But there has been some question about exactly the situation in Qasr. It is fair to say, according to U.S. officials, it is largely secure. There are, as Carol mentioned, these pockets of resistance, as they said. The new port was secured first. The old port is where some of the pockets of resistance were. Yesterday, about 24 hours ago, at this time, we saw Cobra helicopters, Marine Cobra helicopters, firing into some buildings. Apparently, they had taken some small arms fire. As Carol mentioned, Marines going building to building.
We're going to cut away for just a second, Anderson, and go to Tom Mentir, who's in Qatar at the command center. He has more information on an incident of friendly fire. Apparently, a Patriot missile took out a British warplane. Tom, what more can you tell us about that?
Well, I can tell you within the last 12 or so hours, the British have now confirmed that they indeed lost an aircraft. They won't tell us how many were on board this aircraft or exactly where it was lost or even what type of aircraft. But just a few moments ago, the chief spokesman here in the Coalition Media Center confirmed to CNN that they indeed did lose an aircraft, and it was, as they think, taken out by a Patriot anti-missile missile.
Tom?
Evidence is beginning to come to light that one of our aircraft returning from operations over Iraq last night may have been engaged by a U.S. Patriot missile battery.
So this is a friendly fire incident as far as you know it right now?
The evidence is beginning to appear that this may very well have been a friendly fire incident.
Can you tell us what type of British aircraft this was?
We're not disclosing that at the moment.
So we don't know what type of aircraft, we don't know the number of losses, but the British do believe that it was a Patriot missile battery that took out their aircraft during night operations as it was returning from operations inside Iraq. Now in 24 or 48 hours we have seen 2 incidents involving British aircraft. 2 Sea King helicopters collided somewhere in the Persian Gulf just yesterday, killing all on board. They were on force protection operation. Basically, these helicopters took off from the aircraft carrier and were providing early warning detection for the possibility of any missiles coming in towards these aircraft carriers. They apparently collided midair and everyone aboard was lost. Also overnight, we have an incident involving the 101st Airborne. Apparently, one of the soldiers allegedly threw hand grenades inside the command bunker and exchange of small weapons fire. He was taken prisoner, being questioned. One of the U.S. soldiers was killed in that incident. Another dozen were wounded. So 3 incidents in the last 24 hours or so that probably gives some grave concern to military planners.
And I have questions for you about each one, Tom. First of all, let's go back to the British aircraft that was shot down by that Patriot missile. Do we know if it was engaged in combat?
Well, if it was returning from a mission in southern Iraq, it's pretty fair to assume that it was involved in hostile operations. The group captain did tell us that it was returning from an operation inside Iraq, so it's fair to assume that they were involved in some type of offensive operations inside Iraq and returning to base when it was apparently fired on, as they say, by a Patriot missile battery. So outside of that, returning from an operation, that's about all we know.
And Tom, these Patriot missiles lock on to a target, correct? Can you explain to us sort of what that means?
Well, I'm not an expert in Patriot missiles, but I do have some experience around them. They're used traditionally, and they have been used in this campaign to shoot down Scuds. Scud missiles, Iraqi missiles that were fired from inside Iraq towards Kuwait. They have engaged those missiles and shot them down on more than one occasion. So this is a device that is used against incoming missiles. It's quite strange that apparently, if it proves to be true, that this British aircraft was targeted by the missile battery.
Tom and Tyr, we're going to let you go. Thanks for your information. We want to go back to Qatar because we're seeing new live pictures.
Fighting as far as this
particular to the British reporter on scene.
That's correct, over.
Well, there you have it, Martin. We started some 4 hours ago at the beginning of this with a fairly substantial firefight. We've gone through tank fire, airstrikes, and now we're collecting prisoners of war. The US Marines are out there now mopping up, and as you heard the staff sergeant say, it looks as though this particular operation in terms of aggressive opportunities is now over.
And in case you have not been following along with us over the last 2 or so hours, this has been an operation which has captivated much of our coverage and much coverage throughout the world, both in the United States television, Arab television, European television. These images carried live really across the world. What we saw, a platoon at least of Marines took some sort of fire, they believed, from an area that there were some buildings in. They took up defensive positions. Tanks came in. Tanks shot up the area using some heavy machine guns. Then an airstrike was called in. And as we've just heard, the British reporter on the scene saying they are now taking some prisoners and that the operation is essentially over. It has been, and what you're looking at on the screen, you're seeing one individual walking toward what were those buildings. We don't know who that individual is. They're moving quite fast. Doesn't actually look like a soldier. We're simply not sure. But what is significant about this is that this was just one small operation in a much larger area where operations are going on. It is not an operation that has brought to a halt all military activity in that area. General Wesley Clark, who was with us earlier, pointing out that simply other units would just go around this area where this operation was taking place, let the Marines on the ground deal with this, and the further operations in the area of Qasr would continue along. And there have been, over the last 48 hours or so in Qasr, sporadic pockets of resistance and small arms fire and the like being taken by various forces, British, U.S. Marines, and they have been essentially
walking across with a white flag.
Yeah, we're listening to the British pool reporter right now. That figure in the distance is apparently walking towards troops holding a white flag.
Okay. All right. I think we're going to get more airstrikes. Go ahead,
And you're watching the situation live along with us at Qasr. And of course, we're not exactly sure what's going on, but we heard the British reporter say there may be more airstrikes on the way. Just a short time ago.
That's all right.
Let's listen.
We apparently have one Iraqi with a white flag. You can probably see him. I can't. But the other thing is that there's some talk here. We might get a Harrier back and there might be another airstrike. Just let me check on that.
Possibility of a Harrier jet coming in.
Getting the Harrier back?
you want to get a sense of how long this has been going on,
Do we know which one it's going to hit this time?
notice the water bottles by the Marines who are laying down. This has been going on very long. It is very hot, and they have been in those positions on the ground for many hours now.
Attention all networks, AP is about to feed a soundbite from RAF briefing on the missing RAF plane.
Again, we had heard from the British reporter on the scene that the operation seemed to be over. Now he seems to be saying that they are perhaps waiting for another airstrike. Obviously another airstrike perhaps being called in because they feel there is still some, there are still some forces there who have not given up. We saw about a minute or two ago one figure walking to the left of the screen, apparently with a white flag. Couldn't see it from our vantage point, but according to the British reporter on the scene.
Apart from the two vehicles we saw earlier a few minutes ago, Francis, no. There was some reports here that in fact British troops may well be on the ground clearing the area, but the latest speculation is that there may in fact be another airstrike. The Harrier that peeled off may in fact come back here and deliver another bomb. That is unconfirmed, but whilst the situation certainly for the most part appears calm here at the moment, it's fairly obvious that despite what the Staff Sergeant said, there are still precautions to be taken, and this situation is still very much live and is evolving as we speak.
You are listening to the voice of David Bowden, a British pool reporter. Pool reporter meaning that all news outlets have access to the images and the sound that he is collecting at this scene. So you hear...
I think what he was doing was checking the lie of the land, because of course he has 4-2 Commando waiting. They've just cleared the other side of the river. They need to be in here so that they can help set up for the humanitarian aid, but they're not going to do that while this place is still under the control of the 15 the US Marines until they move on to their next task. Then obviously there's not a hole for other people to come in and fill. At the moment, the status quo pertains. They are still here. 4-2 Commando are doing what they initially set out to do, which is sweep from where they were put ashore on the Al Four Peninsula all the way across to here. They're now pretty much here, according to the Deputy Commander, Steve Cox, who told us this morning. And we're just being told that we have to go back on the other side of the berm. It looks like a rerun of what we have just had again. It looks as though the idea of another airstrike is in fact now up and running once again. I am going to leave the microphone. I will come back up on the telephone as soon as I'm able to.
All right, you can see that they're taking cover again as the Marines gather their guns and their bottles of water to go behind a protective wall at Qasr. We're going to stay with this picture, don't worry, as we await a second round of airstrikes at Qasr. We want to go to south central Iraq now to check in with Walter Rogers, who again has more information, and I see fire burning behind you, Walter.
Yes, Carol, the fire which you see behind me is the remnant of an Iraqi army ammunition dump, which was positioned fairly close to the road along which the 3rd Squadron, U.S. Army 7th Cavalry, has been traveling. There is still a remnant of that Iraqi battalion up there. They've been shooting small arms fire and shoulder-fired missiles at the U.S. Army's helicopters, so we now are given to believe that this unit will be calling in Air Force close air support. An airstrike should be called in perhaps in the next few seconds. We're not sure, but we do believe that whatever's left of that Iraqi unit up there, which was once battalion size, is about to face a terrible pounding from the air. The Air Force can operate today because there's an almost unlimited ceiling. That was not possible yesterday, so it was not possible to call in the jets yesterday. Nonetheless, there are some Iraqi soldiers up the road. A short while ago behind me, a U.S. Army Humvee was traveling up that road. A rocket-propelled grenade was fired at that Humvee. We're told there were no U.S. casualties, which is a rather fantastic event because the Humvees are soft-skinned and an RPG is a relatively formidable weapon. One of the officers here told me that those who fired that RPG at the U.S. Army Humvee are no longer existent on this planet. Back to you, Carol.
So I couldn't hear you for just a time, so you're awaiting airstrikes as well, Walter.
That's correct. We've been told that the position which you see behind me, where the plumes of smoke from that ammunition dump, which was hit several hours ago, still coming up. There are pockets of Iraqi resistance there. There's the remnant of a battalion. It is not clear how many Iraqi soldiers are up there. They're hidden in a grove of trees and some small buildings in the area. So we're given to believe that close air support is being called in, which is to say the place is about to be bombed and strafed, and any of those Iraqis left in there are going to face some very serious firepower from the air.
Oddly enough, Walter, this almost the same scenario is going on right now in Qasr. There's a grove of trees and a group of buildings. Don't know how many Iraqis are hiding there. Airstrikes on the way. You know, it's just strange that it's almost the same situation where you are.
Well, of course, in a situation like that, any army, and in this case the Iraqis who are left in that battalion, even this army unit has never been able to identify what battalion it was, but they take advantage of whatever cover, whatever topography they have, which works to their advantage. What they have to their advantage is a small grove of trees, actually, and remember this is our spring here. Those trees are in full leaf, so they have some camouflage, the Iraqis to hide in from the visual sightings from tanks and Bradleys here on the ground. And then you have the ubiquitous low flat mud huts that are used in this part of the world as housing, and that's where the Iraqis are. As I say, close air support has been called in where artillery had been used in the past. U.S. Army helicopters, the Kiowas, have been firing on those Iraqis intermittently this morning, but it's been difficult for the Kiowas because they fly low to the ground. Yes?
Walter, we're going to pause and listen. We hear the aircraft coming to Qasr now.
If you have ever been on the ground and you hear this overhead, it is an extraordinarily ominous sound, and one can only imagine what must be going through the minds of anyone in those positions in the Iraqi forces as they hear this. General Wesley Clark telling us a few moments ago that often when there is not the expectation of receiving ground fire, often a plane will circle overhead for quite some time, looking at the target, trying to decide. Well, it looks
the Marines are coming back, Anderson.
It looks like they've decided not to drop more munitions because we know that because before the Marines had pulled back to behind some sort of retaining wall, protective barrier. Looks like whatever airstrike was going to happen is not happening now, and they are resuming their positions.
Yes. Sal, we go back to South Central Iraq and continue our talk with Walter Rogers and pending airstrikes there. Walter? Is that you getting out of the car, Walter? Walter, can you hear us?
As we wait for Walter, what you're watching is some fire burning in the distance, smoke rising. Okay, let's go back to Qasr. Listen to David Bowden. Sounds like David.
No, stop. I'm back on the microphone now. I don't need to be put through on the phone. Yeah.
You're listening
Alrighty.
to David Bowden, British
Cheers.
Pool reporter.
Bye. Bye.
Just to, if you were just joining us, it's kind of confusing. What you're seeing on the left-hand side of your screen is a video image of the 7th Cavalry where Walter Rogers has been reporting about some conflict that they have been encountering there. On the right-hand side of your screen, you are seeing a live picture from Qasr, where for 3 hours or plus or minus a few minutes, Marines have been trying to deal with a situation of what they are often terming sporadic resistance. We have seen at least one airstrike called in. We have seen one tank peppering an area with machine gun fire. We are not sure what is going on at this point in Qasr. There's a British pool reporter, David Bowden, on the scene. We do not have direct contact with him, so we just sort of listen to him as he gets on the mic and talks. And we are trying to bring both of these images to you at the same time. They are happening in very different places with completely different troops, but they offer two pictures of what is going on in Iraq. Let's listen to David Bowden.
There was a convoy of friendly vehicles on the road in the area, and obviously nobody wanted the potential for a disaster, a friendly fire disaster, so that has now been aborted. The US Marines have now come back up to the top of the berm, which is where we are now. Many of them have been stood down. I can see, one, two, three, a fraction of those who were up here at the beginning of the day when the firefight was at its most intense. It appears to have calmed down a little bit now. Soldiers eating their MREs, meals ready to eat for the uninitiated, getting it all out of their little boxes and having lunch. Everything a little bit more relaxed now, but we've had a very, very tense morning. Some 4 hours or so of a fairly intense battle, a lot of ammunition expended, and the whole gamut of weaponry from personal weapons, M16s, all the way through tanks, mortars and Javelin missiles, right up to F-18 and Harrier jets delivering bombs on this battlefield.
Fascinating pictures. Do we have Walter Rogers on the phone right now from South Central Iraq, because he is awaiting airstrikes right now? Walter, are you with us?
Yes, Carol, I'm here, and if our picture is holding, what you're looking at is a fire from an airstrike, actually artillery strike, a number of hours ago. That's an Iraqi position which is still on fire up there. The Iraqis were ensconced in a grove of trees, substantial grove of trees, plus some small buildings. That unit is about to be bombed and strafed again. The 7th Cavalry has called for close air support. Again, you can see an M1 Abrams tank rolling through your frame at this point. And as I say, there is the remnant of an Iraqi battalion up there in the distance by that smoke. The army is preparing to push on through, perhaps have to fight its way through. But before that call is made, it's expected that close air support will be coming in. That is the Air Force, and they will be bombing or strafing what's left of that Iraqi position up there. Carol?
Is that aircraft over you, Walter?
We can't see the aircraft. It's going to be very high. It's going to come visually out of the sun. We just received word, Carol, that after initiating the airstrike, it has now been canceled. So, but even if it were not, we couldn't see it because the planes come in very high, straight down. We saw that in the war in Afghanistan. The latest word is the airstrike, which we were told not 10 minutes ago is coming, has now been canceled.
All
Again,
right.
according to the same Army source.
All right, Walter, thanks so much for your report. And it's strange that we're seeing smoke from different locations. Qasr is in the southeastern part of Iraq. Walter is in the south central part of Iraq. The smoke you're seeing in Walter's picture, which will be on the left-hand side of your screen, is coming from an Iraqi munitions dump that was exploded by U.S. forces. The smoke you see on the right-hand side of your screen from Qasr came from airstrikes, and we don't know exactly what the target was there, but there was word that Iraqi soldiers were holed up in a building or behind some trees in that area.
And that smoke on the left-hand side of the screen, Walter's saying there, somewhere around that smoke, the remnants of an entire Iraqi battalion who were laying in wait in what he described as a grove, discovered by the Kiowa scout helicopters that is moving in advance of the troops in the 7th Cavalry. Again, we're going to continue to follow both these situations on the screen, and let's go to David Bowden in Qasr right now. This is David Bowden, a British pool reporter, about to interview, we believe, Marine Sergeant, Staff Sergeant on the scene in Qasr, the firefight that we've been following for the last 4 hours. Again, this is not a reporter who we are speaking directly to. This is a British pool reporter whose video is available to various news networks, and so we do not have the ability to actually talk to him. We just have to wait for him to initiate the interview. But you can see behind the staff sergeant a number of Marines still laid out in position, as they have been for 4 hours now, baking in the hot sun. They're now drinking water. We saw some MREs being passed out. Certainly seems that the situation has calmed down from the firefight that we saw shortly ago.
I know it's strange just to see them sitting and eating their MREs right now.
And again, this is just one small group of Marines in one small spot in Qasr. There has been sporadic resistance, we have been told, on and off.
Hello, John. Lerma, L-E-R-M-A. He's part of the 15th MEU. What company are you with? Fox Company. And you are what, a platoon commander or something? Platoon sergeant. Platoon sergeant, Fox Company.
So it seems like we're going to hear from Platoon Sergeant Lerma from Fox Company, U.S. Marines.
Okay.
If you've ever wondered what it looks like before an interview starts, this is it. Not very interesting.
No.
Okay, you're looking on the left-hand side of the screen. Left-hand side of the screen, you're seeing 3 Iraqis. One of them carrying a white flag. This is from South Central Iraq, where Walter Rogers is. Walter, what can you tell us?
Anderson, there have been bizarre things here all morning. The 7th Cavalry has witnessed. What you're watching now are 3 Iraqis trying to get back to their village, which is up the road, and they're carrying a white flag, not so much to say to surrender, but please don't shoot us. And of course, the Army has gone out of its way to not inflict any civilian casualties. And as you can see, the 3 Iraqis are about to walk past an M1A1 Abrams tank.
All right,
Those
Walter.
guys are just going home, Anderson.
All right, Walter, let's listen to David Bowden, who's talking to a platoon sergeant.
Exactly. We had been receiving sporadic fire from that location for the last 2 days. Yesterday we led a convoy out of this area down to the Old Port area. We were engaged at that point, and we had numerous sightings of individuals. We had been passing intel reports back, getting debriefed at that point. When this morning when sunrise came up, we noticed a couple of silhouettes of bodies that were up in the window. It was the first time we got a good actual visual on bodies instead of shadows and figures, you know, not being able to actually ascertain who they were. Once we got eyes on those individuals, they began signaling down to a 4-man group that was on the ground located close to the building. At that point, those 4 individuals started opening fire. We had everybody man the line, and we started immediately providing suppression down on that, getting our weapon systems into place. Once we got our weapon systems into place, we attempted an AT-4 shot, but that was way out of the range, so we fell short, so we brought the Javelin weapon system up to bear. The first shot went a little bit long, second shot direct impact to that building. Once that building was hit, then it became very apparent that there was a lot of movement in that area. We had troops start moving back and forth. We began engaging with the machine guns, and just people started just popping out of everywhere. I had Iraqi soldiers that were located in the vicinity over there to the left of our left lateral limit. We started engaging them. Second post over there began engaging fire at that point. Then once we realized that we were dealing with a lot larger force than we expected, we started putting up our observation posts. They started relaying information and really started bringing the combined arms into effect in order to get control of the situation.
Let me just interrupt you there, just to confirm. Who fired first? Did you see these people in this building and decided you were going to take them out, or did they start firing at you?
Once we saw the individuals in the building, we saw them start calling down to the 4 individuals. Automatically, they came with a posture. We let off the first burst, and automatically they started returning fire towards us.
And then, of course, it escalated rapidly. We had tanks here. We had ultimately airstrikes. This went from being what was a smallish skirmish, I guess, at the beginning, to a full-scale, 4-hour-long battle.
Yes, it did. I mean, we have unconfirmed reports of different Iraqi officers stating that troop strength. I mean, all of that is unconfirmed. I'm sure as this unfolds, the picture will become a lot clearer of what exactly was in there and who was operating in there. But it did. It rapidly escalated into, like you said, from a skirmish into a full-scale battle.
You will know better than most that when the plans were drawn up for this conflict against Iraq, the idea was for you guys from the 15 Mu to get into Qasr and get out in a matter of hours. We're now moving into day 3. These guys are slowing you up, aren't they?
Well, no, actually, the original plan was us to roll into Qasr, and we were to be here from anywhere from a 4 to 8 hour period, or as you were, a 4 to 8 hour span of days. It's always uncertain as long as how we're going to be here. I mean, the situation is unfolding, and as the battlefield unfolds, we make adjustments. We could be here anywhere from a couple of hours to many days. I mean, we're not going to move through until we thoroughly have provided and secured this area for the non-government organizations to roll in. We want to make sure that they have the ability to roll in here unimpeded by any type of threat, so that we can get that humanitarian aid in here and start getting that humanitarian aid out to the people that need it.
What's your best guess then, given what's happened here this morning, about how close you are to that objective? Is it still dangerous out there?
I really can't speak above my level what's going on as far as the whole area down here. As far as me at ground level with my squad, there's always a threat. I mean, we don't adhere to reports from anybody that the threat has gone away, this area is secured. We're always maintaining our posture here on the platoon level to ensure that we here are always constantly ready for a fight, because it could pop up from anywhere.
Did it surprise you that Iraqi soldiers that it had been predicted would just hold their hands up and surrender, have put up such a fight and have caused you so much problem this morning?
Nothing out here surprises me. I mean, we prepare and we anticipate the worst, and we always focus our training and focus everything that we do out here to anticipate that. What actually happened here, who knows? I mean, you might have had a rogue bunch that just decided to separate from the individuals. I mean, because we've got reports, unconfirmed of course, at our level of divisions giving up. There's always going to be a few that are going to remain to the cause, and I mean, that's why we maintain the posture here on the platoon level that we do.
Just clear something up for me. When we were speaking earlier in the middle of the battle, you mentioned 15, 20 people you saw in the distance. What happened to them? Where did they go?
Right now, we have reports that we have individuals that are starting to move towards Objective 5, where...
Objective 5 is what?
Objective 5 is basically a staging area for POWs and any detainees that we have.
And is that out on what became the battlefield this morning somewhere?
Somewhere located in that area.
So if we swing the camera around, Mike, perhaps we could have a quick look at the area we're talking about just behind us. What was pretty much the battlefield this morning. It now appears to be all quiet, but Staff Sergeant, for a while this morning, you were concerned that there were people popping up all over the place, and you had no idea who they were.
Yes, I mean, like I said, as the battlefield unfolds, I mean, anything could happen. Anything that's out there is always going to be always be taken in with the greatest amount of concern. I mean, we're never going to approach a situation as Marines where we assume anything. Anybody out there could be giving up. They could be fighting until we definitely get confirmation and we get visual on what exactly they're doing. We're always going to go into the posture and expect the worst.
Staff Sergeant, we've all had a very busy morning. I'll let you go and get some food and water and prepare for whatever might be coming your way. Back to you.
All right, you have been listening to David Bowden, a British pool reporter who has been following this skirmish in Qasr for the last 4 hours or so. You've just been listening to Staff Sergeant Nick Lerma with Fox Company, the U.S. Marines. And when you consider that that man has been